Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheist can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.
Hey,
how you doing?
not too bad. Yourself?
Doing.
Good.
Yeah, so I normally don't say things about the Democratic president that we now have, Biden.
Right.
But I think it was really shitty as fuck to tell rail strikers what the fuck to do or not to do. I mean,
Yep.
I don't care what the fuck, how you can say, especially to me, it's even more disgusting. Because to me, he proclaims himself to be a union supporter.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm, not that he really, I don't know his whole background, but not that I totally agree that everything that he says that he's some kind of blue collar or whatever.
Right.
But because that probably is inaccurate. But it doesn't matter. My point is that's his claim.
Yeah.
Right. His claim is that he understands blue collar, people and their lives and unions and important and all this shit, and then tells a union what the fuck to do. And this is the other thing too. People like, oh well, he had to do something. The Democrats, right? I just get irritated. Like, oh my god, how do you defend this? This is undefendable.
Right.
But then they're like, oh well, they just have to, deal with. Yeah, they have to deal with not having sick days. Fucking great. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, especially during a pandemic.
Yeah.
However, could someone justify those two things together? Can't have sick days and there's a pandemic still going on, right?
Yeah.
Even if you want to say that it's not at pandemic level, it's still at killing people every day level.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So hundreds of people a day. So in the United States, so it's still at a level that is dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the thought that somebody someone got irritated that I said it was disgusting or whatever, or I don't remember what I said, but it is disgusting.
It is disgusting. It's an accurate description.
Yeah, and I would say it was the first time
that in a long time, I don't know how long, but it was the first time in a long time that I had a real, like, I don't have a soul, but I'm just using this terminology, like the center of my being, like a soul gripping, like bad feeling that there has to be a revolution, because obviously the government won't even allow a worker to take over. Like, because like what I mean by this, people grasp what I'm saying. I don't know if you're on left Twitter, but a lot of them will say like, well, with all the workers, this is my point. They'll say like revolution will happen because all the workers will stop, and then if we all go on strike, in a sense, like all workers have a general strike, that then somehow the government will then be in a sense weakened and able to be taken over. But this was the first time that I had a bad feeling when that happened. Not that maybe there's been other, because I'm not claiming he's the only one that's ever attacked a union.
Right. Yeah, clearly.
But I'm just saying that in my experience, I haven't experienced a lot of that I know of. I have been made aware of whatever you want to call it. Because I'm not saying that there's not stuff. There's a lot I don't know. But it made me feel like, wow, I really hope that we can have just to understand, it's not that I want violent revolution. This is my point.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that I felt like maybe that's the only thing that can work, because the government will always fight against workers being able to strike.
It absolutely feels that way.
It's I'm just saying about discussing. People don't grasp like how ill it made me feel.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, oh, well, he did this, and it's good of the country. Yeah, see, but that statement right there, that's the vile part right there.
Right. Yeah. Like the well-being of these workers, who are essentially a backbone of the economy, is not important enough to justify giving them any of their demands. Like even sick
and the
days,
question is it unrealistic demands? Does Congress get paid sick days? Yes. I don't know how you can sit there, or does the president get in a sense days where he's allowed to be sick? Of course.
Yeah, of course.
It's fucking ludicrous, but it's worse to me, because what you're saying is, if it comes to strikes or the economy continuing, in other words, that they're not allowed to strike,
right?
Then it's always to the government's moral position that breaking the strike is always, in a sense, favorable until letting the strike happen. And so that made me realize, wow, so strikes, maybe general strike couldn't happen.
Right.
And then I thought, well, what if people still striked, even if you said not? They lose their job. But then, of course, a lot of these fields are technological. You can't just grab someone and stick them in, especially if there was no one to train them.
Yeah, that's right.
But I was thinking in general, though, how, in a sense, this one action that some people think is no big deal, to me is like scary.
Yep.
Because what I'm saying is, if you don't let, if you don't let peaceful revolution happen, violent revolution is the outcome. It's almost like what I'm saying. That's why I'm a revolutionary. I want change. I don't demand that it's violent. In fact, I prefer it to be nonviolent.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that was the first time where I felt ooh, damn.
Like, is a violent revolution actually inevitable?
Right, exactly. Because if that's the behavior you do, boy, then I was like,
it seems like it, right? Like,
what else is there?
If you take away all of our peaceful tools,
you get it, fuckers? If you take away our right to do things, eventually, just like in the Sumerian proverb, that which is, subjugated, will revolt, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then again, it always reminds me too that how easily, not just that they do it, like the elites or whatever, but all these like Democrats are like trying to support. Oh well, they even like didn't Bernie Sanders and
AOC and like the squad, yeah.
I just go,
But you were
fucking
supposed to
world
be
am
the
I
good
living in,
guys.
you know?
But you were supposed to be the good guys. How can you be doing this?
Well, especially because I feel like they would say they're on my side, but then
Yeah.
I look at the behavior that, are you sure you are?
Right.
Because that's not on my side.
Yeah.
Telling
things
me
you're
any
doing-
bullshit about we can't let workers strike. This is what I was thinking too. If I was a union-supported president, supposedly like Biden claims to be, then my side would be telling the company, right? This is crazy. I know this is really crazy. You are going to accept not a deal, but what the workers said, because we will not let you put workers in a position where it threatens America. See what I'm
Because
saying?
yeah,
Isn't
your
that
profits
crazy?
are not more important
Right?
than the well-being
Because
of our
the
economy.
workers are more important than you, and you are not as important as the economy.
Yeah.
The government, see that, couldn't the government have done that?
Yep.
Yeah, but that's not what happened. So don't fucking defend it in front of me.
Yeah. No,
Because it's disgusting, like I said. Anyways, I don't want to make all this thing about that. Like I said, I don't all the time, but that was like it bothered me like really bad.
Yeah, no, I get it. I know, like, I try to keep up on union news, so I've been watching a bit of this and seeing it and it always kind of plays out the same way, right? If you're in an industry that the government determines is super important, then they'll force you to go back to work, regardless of whether or not the company you work for is raking in record profits or not. Like it always works out that way.
Yeah, I just find that to be, and right, but you get what I'm saying. Couldn't the government, if you're supposedly pro-union, just say, look, you're going to accept this. This is too much of an important industry. What they're asking for is not mansions. They're asking for fucking the basics.
Yeah.
And so if you won't do that, then that's fine.
Yeah.
We will force you to. I mean,
Yep.
That would be a good use of government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really just shows like who the government works for, right? It's not, they don't work for the people.
Right. And which is the same thing about this whole show series, is showing that these governments claim greatness and they build monuments and how wonderful and powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
This doesn't benefit the people.
No, that's right. It's never for the benefit of the people. It's always for those who happen to be living in palaces.
Right. Because it's either the stuff is built by slaves or built by people with experience that are being paid wages that were stolen from people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Through whatever means, direct means of conquest, or by, giving them slave labor, in a sense, almost with the wage. Because people understand that, to me, this is why, to me, like I told you, I don't need socialism, just my own hate of capitalism.
Yeah, I didn't actually need an alternative theory. I know this one's just evil.
You see what I'm saying? That's why when people are like, I don't know enough about socialism, I'm like, yeah, I know enough about capitalism. I just telling you. Exactly. I just realized that that's the choice that makes sense also. But for my own thought, just looking at the situation, that makes it just it's like a logical do. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which is going back to one thing I didn't talk about, because I don't want to get all about politics exactly, but I see. So that one ancient apocalypse, right, with Graham.
Graham Hancock.
Hancock, sorry. I know. See how important he is? I can't remember his name. He's not important to me. And I would say two things. One is that there was different archaeological reactions. Like, in other words, an archaeologist sees and goes, oh my God, this is just terrible in all kinds of ways. And other people don't grasp it. And sometimes, think about this, archaeologists, in a sense, aren't always philosophers or orators, or don't always do podcasts, or aren't, even if they do a podcast, they may be really structured towards the scientific method, in a sense, not debating other people on random bullshit.
Right. They're not out there trying to debunk Graham Hancock.
Correct. Right. They're actually going and doing work. So so I'm just saying, so in general, I think that it's hard, sometimes, because I heard Graham Hancock say some archaeologists come and debunk me. Well, they're not debating teams. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
anyway, you get my point. So,
Yeah.
well, because this is the point. Like, it's a fallacy to think that just because someone can't debate you doesn't mean they aren't right. Doesn't mean they don't have, in a sense, reason for their position, even if they can't express it. It's not. My point is, I'm saying I really find it to be a fallacy, even though I'm kind of good at expressing my views. It doesn't mean that people that can't are somehow lesser in intelligence or something.
Right.
They just can't explain how intelligent they really are, because being a linguist is like not one form of intelligence. There's all kinds. Right. You certainly wouldn't say someone who makes music, who doesn't sing, but just makes the theme music or whatever, but yet can't sing. Does that mean that they are not a musician? I mean, you get my point. It's just fallacy.
Yeah. It's like I watch a lot of video essays on YouTube, and I'm learning, as I'm also trying to write my own, that this is an entire skill set that you have to not everybody has, and I'm not sure that I have it, right? Like I'm trying to develop this skill set, and debating is a similar thing, or like arguing and debunking is a similar thing.
Totally, and that's so people need to understand that. Forgive me. So sometimes they'll make statements or say things, and other people, because they don't realize that they are thinking in like this academic thing. So I'm going to give you an example about Graham Hancock, because we're going to make videos on him.
Right.
I want to finish what I wanted to do first, and then we'll get to that guy. He's not so important. I need to drop what I'm doing.
We're not interrupting our current series.
Yeah, I'm already been interrupting it. So I'm done with that. I want to get this because I want to get done and then be able to do other stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways, but Graham Hancock. So they say that his ideas, that some people got mad because the archaeologists were saying that it seemed like his ideas are similar to racist ideas.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard that, but and like especially like white nationalism or Nordic belief, or anyways, there's two reasons. So people thought, they're crazy. How is he attaching to this? Well, you have to understand there's something they know you don't. So ever since 1990, they stopped using the word Cro-Magnon to refer in scientific stuff because it had an attachment to scientific racism.
Mm-hmm.
That term, Cro-Magnon.
Right.
Now, I've heard Aaron Ross say it, and maybe he just doesn't know, but that is not supposed to be used anymore. Now it's early European modern humans, or EEMH. I had to think about it. Or whatever. But I mentioned them a lot, and as we talked about it before, because I don't use it as a global term, I talk about the culture. So I say like the Orca Nation culture.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which is that, and if you go read on that, it helps a lot more too than that larger term, because that larger term, if you go read the definition, it mentions scientific racism, but anyway, so I don't want to go into all that, but my point is that what they're saying is that when you use this still today in 2022, yeah, 2022, after that many years, and if you looked into this, you should kind of start to get, especially since Graham Hancock's whole thing is all about this.
Right.
So the fact that he doesn't know that just using the term, and this is why it's important with Graham Hancock that other archaeologists or whatever would grasp about the scientific racism, and we wouldn't. Just go look on the page, early European modern humans, and then it'll say Cro-Magnon. And if you go read on it, it will tell you why archaeologists think that Graham Hancock's Great Flood.
Oh, okay.
Because Cro-Magnon was believed to be related to the creationists who were looking for stuff at that time. It says all this. Scientific racism, says it right there in the Wikipedia. And the belief in the Great Flood. Boom. So him talking about the Great Flood, and then using terms like coded terms in a sense, or whatever you want to call them.
Right. It's like archaeological dog whistles.
Dog whistles, right? So that's why. And if it's unintentional, okay, then I also sent you stuff because we're going to talk about video for him, but on his series. But one of the things I just want to say in this series, in fact, one of the other archaeologists made a comment about this too. The comment says, "What DNA?" Which I'd be asking the same thing.
Right.
What DNA? Because that's a big deal to me. You said but this person did whatever. We know what DNA did. In fact, we even know like their migration route.
Right.
So I want to hear who you're saying who is who.
Yeah.
It's not good enough just to say, oh, some ancient culture that died out. Were great seafarers. Oh, wait. What culture? Exactly. So in that whole 7 or 8 shows that he does, an hour long, I watched all of them. Hideous.
It was like torture.
Yeah. Some of the stuff is cool that he's showing, but what he's saying about it and stuff and how he's just talking, oh, hideous.
Yeah.
Me. But anyways, but the whole thing, right? All things 7 or 6 or whatever the hell it is, right? I watched all of them. And after watching all of them, just like the archaeologist, one of them made a video about, he said, the guy mentions no culture that we can like know what he's talking about.
Right.
Like I would say the Orca nations or the Graviton culture and the Magdalenian culture. These are specific. You can go look them up. There's all kinds of information, DNA, everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he's not talking cultures. That's already a problem. But the other problem is, right, so that's only in the video, though. The archaeologist didn't do like me and go look further. So the archaeologist says, oh, he doesn't mention any culture. He doesn't talk about DNA one time in the video. He doesn't talk about, relatedness of culture of some kind, like, in other words, like pottery coming from Japan and showing up in Ecuador. And then the DNA of Ecuador having a larger percentage of Japanese DNA than all the other surrounding areas.
Right.
And that's the same place that this pottery is. Anyways, my point is that's just like my thing with millet. So before information, right? See, like I in a sense, science, I try to build my stuff off of the evidence, standing on evidence, and then you build your hypothesis from the evidence.
Right.
Well, there was evidence that everywhere in Asia practically relates to the spread of millet, like 2 major family of like hundreds of languages of all China and all over South Asia, and then all the way to Turkey. I mean, just all these all really relate to millet. So then also seeing, which I saw, millet going from China at the same similar time and ending up in the Balkans and in over the Black Sea, right area where the sense Indo-European has a relation to. Some people say it's the exact origin, and some people say it's not, but it doesn't matter. The point is, this is a massive relation. So if a language all of a sudden births out of the place where it looks like people from China stopped,
right,
it's super logical to go, well, maybe there's a relation to that. And then I go and look, and there's a couple other relations, like the yin and the yang symbol is actually from there and later goes over to China.
Oh, okay.
So that you start to see like a cross. Anyway, my point is that's at least, here's the things science loves, falsifiable.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when all of a sudden another article comes out later and says that which like I told you about being skeptical, but that doesn't mean I believe my theory anymore, my old one.
Right.
It just means I'm kind of skeptical of their claim. It just sounds a little odd. They said they checked 75 places in Europe and the Balkans and stuff, and that all of them were wrong, dated thousands of years younger. And I was
all of them.
You get what I'm saying? Ones that said all 7,000 or 7,200 or 6,000 something. All of them now are 4,000. So they're off by thousands. So that already is. But then he says, well, some of them, this is a problem too, wasn't all. So I'm still not, that some of them were just assumed because of pottery in situ. That's another problem. Archaeologists generally look at just like what they do for, looking for time, at dirt, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's different like layers, and stuff in that layer is generally that time. So if you found stuff that would fit this culture, that's only like a limited time, how unless your testing methods are wrong, how are you saying it's thousands of years off, but still in that position? Did somebody dig all the way down and then bury the thing in this older? You get what I'm saying? I mean,
it'd be like it would be, if you're talking about like geology, it would be similar to be like saying, this strata that's always in this time frame, or usually in this time frame, is suddenly like we've been measuring it wrong the whole time.
Right. Or that this is the problem too. See, this is the problem. If it was just one place, I could totally, I wouldn't even think about it. But several places, all having the same. So everyone dug up old graves and buried this thing down there. You get what I mean?
Right.
I'm not getting, because something is not adding up to me. How do you say the Kukatini culture, which is only in a certain, like Ukraine and Romania, and only a certain amount of time, has millet, and then now you're saying it can't have had it because it's too young?
Okay.
I'm like, then how was it found in where they're at?
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's all I'm saying. And also, I know they found some in Çatalhöyük, which I guess maybe they're claiming that's debunked now too. I don't know, because they checked all these different sites. Some people consider that West Asia. Some people consider it kind of like part of Europe in like a type of thinking, whatever. Not that I actually is, but you know what I'm saying. Just like adding like probably just the West half. But anyway, my point is, I'm just saying that how they see it is different. So, but to me, even if you saw a few different, you get what I'm saying? The fact that many can be that bad is like, but unlike Graham Hancock, Damien doesn't go, it must be a conspiracy, you know?
Right.
I go, okay, I will update my belief structure on the new evidence. Even if it's evidence that I don't like, because it seems to be not great evidence, but if that is true, and I'll have to assume until science, another article comes out and says these people are idiots, or they learn to test, here's the next data. But here's the point. Then I will believe that, because that is the truth.
Right.
That is relatable at the time. This goes back to epistemic certainty, which I try to talk about the difference in just psychological certainty. It's evidence certainty. So right now, the evidence is all that evidence is wrong. So I have to throw out my old idea.
Right.
That's what Graham Hancock should do. Throw that shit out the door. Shit. So this goes back to also what I was saying, the Graham Hancock. So he's in the whole video, there's no culture, no other. Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's never mentioned the culture, because I was thinking, did he mention the Swinderland culture?
Okay.
Is it from Poland at 13,000, I think, until 11,000 or something? I don't remember exactly, but I'd probably say it's probably Swanderland, or I don't. Anyways, not a priority. But my point is, I heard him saying something. He calls these travelers that name. So once again, let's go back to the scientific racism. Why way the hell up there in Poland? And Poland certainly is land. Why not Denmark? I mean, but anyways, something odd. But this goes back to also his use of the word, like he. So I went and looked, right? Because I wanted to find, because I remember he seemed like he talked about one culture, but then I didn't hear him talk about any cultures in all those videos, or DNA. But so then I went and looked, and I found an article, like a blog post that he made, and he talks about his belief of who it is.
Okay.
He says it's R1b DNA. That's only basically like the farthest I would say is Siberia to Europe. So, and here's another thing: it's almost completely a landlocked DNA.
Okay.
So saying these are the best ancient seafarers is already making me kind of like, they traveled the whole world. They're already, to me, laughable. What? These people that were like the most landlocked DNA almost that is. You think he's now the great seafarers?
Seems like he's just picked one almost. Like he didn't really think about
or his thinking is that the ending. See, now, like most of them were landlocked, and then a few of them go over to Britain and stuff. And then from there, I guess you can say that DNA became seafarers. But what, you mean like at like 3,000 or 2,000 years ago? I thought your thing was about 12,000.
Right.
It doesn't work at all. 12,000 years ago, these people were landlocked. So I'm just making a comment that but then there is DNA, right, of R in Lake Balka, like the parent DNA, and they have to do with the ancient North Eurasians that go over to even to the Americas. So maybe we can help him understand something. Yeah, but just because the one person that's like some Native Americans is in the Americas and in Siberia doesn't mean all the kinds of DNA that being who actually was found in Siberia, so never was in America,
right?
That being doesn't mean. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, like you, I don't know, but let's just say me. I have H, I have R, I have something else. I think so. I have a couple, right? So it's a couple different DNAs,
right?
So if I say that I'm related to Native Americans, it could be this one and this one or this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does. You get my point. So. Anyways, I know DNA is hard to people. It's very important because this is how you track this shit's real, how you make it more falsifiable. Why some of my ideas are better in the sense, like I said, because they're falsifiable than it is for like Graham. But then once you give the DNA, now you're starting to talk about falsifiable shit now.
Right.
So this DNA, right? So he thinks it came over probably like 12,000 or whatever, and they were the great seafarers. Because he talks about, I know you don't maybe understand, but he talks about this event that happened, supposedly starburst in the sky or something, and then made the changing of the weather. Anyways, the Younger Dryas or whatever. Anyways, the point is it's like 12,000 or something. That's what he says. Göbekli Tepe is trying to talk about, is this event happening or whatever. Anyways. He tries to relate, and of course, he tries to relate everything to the Great Flood too, which is ridiculous. And like I said, going back to the thing, so he talks about JDNA, and he says that the people that go to America, try to summarize this because not my whole show on this, but so he tries to say that they were Caucasoidal, sometimes red hair. We're gonna go through and read.
Okay,
Caucasoidal, and he means like in facial structure or whatever, or structure or whatever. Okay, that brings me to another thing of the scientific racism. The word Caucasoid actually means person from the Cossack Mountains. In other words, Georgia, Armenia, are something else. I don't know.
Somewhere up in that area,
Pakistan or something. Anyways, I don't know. I'm not. Hey, I'm not perfect. So, anyways, but some place over there. It's basically just north of eastern Turkey in a sense.
Okay,
it's what becomes into Russia, right? So that's it. That's what the word actually means. Like, if you give it a true meaning. When it came out, it was racist because at the same time they talk about Caucasoids, they call people Negroids, Mongoloids.
Right.
Just saying. So anyway,
it's like the fundamentals of race science, right? Like.
See what I'm saying? See, now you get what I'm saying. So when you use these words like Caucasoid featured, and it came to the Native Americans,
it kind of gives away the game, right?
Them things, right?
Yeah.
So Caucasoid, light-skinned, sometimes red-haired.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
and you use the word also Cro-Magnon, and you talk about floods, which goes back to that scientific racism for that word. I'm just saying that when people are like, "It's not fair," they're just calling him racist because they don't like his ideas. Like, well,
there's reasons. There's reasons.
They must not have done, in a sense, a good enough job explaining to you why these two terms problematic.
Yeah,
and the fact that he says that, I don't say that. I do think, unlike him in a lot of ways, but in one way that there's a kind of a connection with the pyramids. But I think it's from, in a sense, China down. And to me, though, it relates to all these mounds and mountains because there's a lot of mountain myths and stuff. So I think that the people that are Native American brought it themselves.
Right.
I don't think just so people understand my thinking is, I just am saying that the idea of building these things, because even if people say, well, the mound cultures, say in the Midwest or whatever, are not like the Aztecs, I would say, well, now they're not.
Right.
Because they weren't all built just as round mounds. Some of them were like step pyramids.
Okay.
So my point, that's what I'm saying, is that so there was pyramids in a sense. The difference, even like down the Mississippi culture too, later, they have these similar, they're not just, they call it mounds, but if you go look at it, there's two kinds. One, in a sense, is like a burial mound, but it's like a mountain and there's a lot of people in it. But there's, you understand, it's not like they then left it away and never came. No, they would come back or top or whatever and like pray on it, turn it into like a religious site or whatever.
Right.
To do, you know, with the ancestors. Probably.
For sure. Yep.
Anyways, but so he says that foreigners come from somewhere else and taught these people how to do stuff. And they knew geometry perfectly and they shared it with everybody. No, that's not what I'm saying. At fuck all. No.
Yeah.
I'm saying there's a relation. Here's my thought. I think it has probably something to do with cDNA, which is the same one for the on Asian side, like the Mongols or whatever. It's that same DNA that actually does relate to the Danes language, and the same time that came over, that science knows that came over. Right. Unlike his proposed whatever the fuck. And to me, it's really crazy too, because his idea is these people's stuff got destroyed at 12,000 and became seafarers. Well, first off, they never talk about where the culture came or what things look exactly like for that culture. But even if they had come over, then you would see the DNA, let's just say, if we believed him, along the coast. Like you see C. You can see C is like C, all the way down to like almost Panama. Maybe not that, or Argentina, maybe. But I mean, it's like from the north, certainly North America, like Washington at least. Probably it's Canada too, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think so. I think there might be some Canada, and just it's all the way down. Right, so
you can literally see the path of travel.
Right? Right? Obviously,
yeah.
Then there's also one that went into the center with the Dane language, and split, and then into Arizona stuff. So it went straight to like kind of like the mountain or almost Midwest or plains. I think the plains. There's a plains states, I think. Okay. And then into Arizona. So, but we could track the DNA. We know which that one that is. Right. It's like C, 58, and the other one is C3, So anyways, my point is this more matches what I say and what time, about 6,000, because the thought is that maybe it came in at 6,000.
Okay.
This is real important too. Guess what time I say that these people related to the copper culture, old copper culture? Because to me, the old copper culture and the Algonquin language actually comes from the Pacific Northwest 7,000 years ago, and then migrates all the way to the Great Lakes. Anyways, but I'm saying, so, and then when you put times together and events and stuff, you start to see that there certainly is a relation to something. And that's my thought is always, I'm talking about the religion of how these main big ideas break off. And even if, say, one just came down and then the other one broke off of it, and then they have a shared totemistic idea, well, it's not surprising.
Right,
The Pacific Northwest is totemistic, and way out here in the Great Lakes is also totemistic. That's not a shocker.
Right, yeah. Because you can track it back,
how the
right?
language split, So
yeah.
But Graham's thing is R. So going back to the Great Lakes, like R is mainly in the United States, really central on the totemists in the Great Lakes.
Okay.
But there's definitely been trapping and all that or at the Great Lakes for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it certainly could be and likely is just colonialism DNA. Right? The RB is what I'm talking about, because it comes from, like, let's say, Irish, English, Scottish, I don't remember off the top of my head but I think Spain, a couple other, maybe France,
all the Germany. Colonizer regions.
Yeah, like you get my point.
Yeah.
Right. So I was trying to, and I apologize for not learning more about the Midwest, if that DNA is older. I'm just assuming, right? Because I did look at this one, South America, right? Because they have DNA on it,
Right.
of when R came to South America, and it says that 500 years ago. This
So
is
not
one
that
test
long,
for all
actually.
Brazil. Well, that sounds a hell of a lot like the conquistadors or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then R, all the other, in a sense, South American, same thing, or same similar thing. You know, not long time, you know, thousands of years.
Right.
No. And so remember, his would have to be that you found this DNA or some kind of ancient DNA that matched the 12,000 or whatever. And if they told the people in Peru, here's their thing too, that people don't get how illogical. Let's assume you don't know any of that stuff I just told you, which to me debunks what he's thinking, at least in the blog. He didn't claim that stuff in the video, probably because it's easier to debunk.
Because it's easy to, because
you start giving us falsifiable stuff. Whoa!
Yeah, that's right. You can't have that on the public record.
Right. So it's and that's why to me it's really important to understand that if you have no falsifiable ideas and you're doing that intentionally, what kind of person does that? One telling the truth or one lying? You know what I'm saying? I am, and that's why people think I'm crazy. Archaeologists go, hey, you're crazy. You say all your ideas. I go, yeah. But if you notice, I also give ones that are definitely falsifiable. And I'm ready to change when shown that's accurate.
Right.
I said, you know what that also does? Tells people that even when you believe things, it's more healthy to actually accept facts.
Yeah, it's good practice to change your ideas when you're shown wrong.
Right. And so if all this stuff was built to me on this idea that I understood the Dawn Draper culture or whatever, Draper Dawn culture, which is where almost the Proto-Indo-European comes from, and definitely have the RB, and I think maybe an RA also, but anyways, but they had millet.
Okay.
And now I am, for the other thing, didn't address them particularly, but said there was all those things are wrong. So like I said, I'm just going to accept that fact until shown otherwise, because I feel like that's the way you should be building beliefs.
Yeah, so, even if it feels uncomfortable or contradicts previous beliefs, that's just how it works, right?
To me, it's just the only reason I'd say I have skepticism is just because that's kind of how wishy-washy it makes it sound. So, but I accept science. As like I said, I also appreciate archaeologists, like I told you before. I appreciate historians. I people that actually are trying to do stuff, and I also appreciate even people that like this guy that does this video. It's not like he's a a big academic, but I appreciate even like what we're doing, people that are trying to tell the truth and trying to even like I said, I'll accept that you can fall down a rabbit hole. Just don't eat the rabbit shit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And to me, like I said, if you build beliefs that you believe, I believe this is true, it should be epistemic to me, meaning that there should be evidence.
Right.
And if that evidence is gone, here's the next clue. You should stop believing that belief.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But I just wanted to touch on, we'll do stuff and talk more and use his direct quotes, Graham Hancock. We'll do a video on it, but we're going to get to our, our other stuff.
Sounds good. So this is where we're talking about.
By around 7,000 to 6,000 BC, people began to move south along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to what were by then the fertile floodplains of Mesopotamia, specifically in the land that today makes up most of Iraq and parts of northern Syria. Mesopotamia, which means land between rivers, is the Greek name for the area, and it's here that early farms began to really take root on a much larger scale.
All right, so if people have been watching us regularly, they might know that already, but for new viewers, that's the area we're talking about. And then we are currently this is like the 8th show in this series.
Right. It is 8th episode. This is where we talk about the Gutians.
Yeah.
And basically the end of Syria rule, at least empire.
So then we have a thinking
Short
about
video.
like 3.5 minute segment from this other video that kind of goes through the basics of it, and then we'll talk about it.
Though the Akkadian Empire was no more, the final nail in the coffin came several years later when a people from the Zagros Mountains, known as the Gutians, swept in, overthrew Shudural, and destroyed Agade. Most scholars believe that it was a bit more complicated than that. Recent findings seem to indicate that severe famine and drought may have been the real culprit, causing instability in both Sumer and Akkad, as well as the collapse of the regional economy. This would have no doubt triggered massive unrest amongst the general population, and ultimately brought the Akkadian state to a point where it could no longer hold on to its many territories. The central authority in Agade broke down, and one by one, like dominoes, provinces of the Akkadian Empire seceded. In such circumstances, people like the Gutians probably saw an opportunity to raid, plunder, and perhaps seize some territory for themselves. What was going on in this new post-Akkadian world is not very clear, but the Sumerian king list seems to indicate that the most stable area in Mesopotamia may have been Uruk. Then, Agade was defeated, and the kingship was taken.
For a second.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a few of the Gutians are on the Sumerian king list.
Oh, okay.
He didn't mention that, and he also didn't mention. He just said that the people believed that there was a famine or a dry spell or whatever, climate change. In other words. Well, I know that there was a, not that far away, a volcano eruption similar or close within that time. And that could have, like the stuff going in the air could have caused the climate to be affected. Certainly.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And but I was going to say also that doesn't mean that like they totally, like some of the places were abandoned, but they also could have been abandoned because the drought already made them weak, and then all of a sudden you hear people are coming to take you over. But anyway, so I think there probably was some level of obviously violence. It wasn't just against the towns themselves, but the empire itself was, in a sense, affected by climate. But it, like he said, it was still going.
Right.
It was like, say, like, there's states, in the world today where they're not, as powerful as they once were. Like, say, Britain used to, in a sense, run the world, but so did, in a sense, Portugal, depending on what time frame you're going to. You know what I'm saying? Right.
And Spain for a while.
Spain, right? Yeah. You can get my point, or France or whatever. But
yeah.
So these different, or Germany. So you go to different times. It would be true, but it doesn't stay that way. But it doesn't mean that. I was always trying to say is just because a nation is like almost crippled and defeated just by climate change doesn't mean the state just decides to one day, not wanting to state.
Right. Yeah.
They usually run when they're going to be threatened. Not.
Yeah. And then if whatever little bit of land or whatever they'll hold on to, and they'll try and rebuild and try and take over more. Yeah.
Right. I was just saying that.
Yeah.
I felt like he went too quick on that. They, other people moved out and they basically moved in. Yeah, but there was still a state, which he even says there's still a state.
Right.
Yeah. So that's all. It's just mentioned it.
Okay.
To Uruk. In Uruk, Ur-Nigin became king. He ruled for 7 years. Ur-Jijir, son of Ur-Nigin, ruled for 6 years. Kuda ruled for 6 years. Puzur-Ili ruled for 5 years. Ur-Utu ruled for 6 years. 5 kings ruled for 30 years. After this, we have the dynasty of Gutium and Gutian rule of the region. Uruk was defeated, and the kingship was taken to the army of Gutium. The army of Gutium, a king whose name is unknown. Nibia became king. He ruled for 3 years. Then Ingishu ruled for 6 years. Ikukumlakaba ruled for 6 years. Shulme ruled for 6 years. Silulumesh ruled for 6 years. And the list goes on until it tells us 21 kings who ruled for 91 years and 40 days. Gutian kings are unknown to us from any other evidence or documents, with the exception of one who doesn't actually appear on the Sumerian king list. His name was Eridu Wazir.
So many of them are 6 years. It makes me wonder, did they all rule and then were taken over after 6 years? Or is it saying that consecutively, one after another, they ruled, and that they were choosing to only reign for a certain amount of years?
Right, like term limits.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's all I was saying. That's an odd,
Yeah, that it's so consistently 6 years.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a few statues found in Nippur indicate that he was king of Gutium and of the 4 quarters. Other than this, little material evidence of a Gutian presence in Sumer has been discovered. It's quite possible that they had little real control over Sumer, and perhaps only sent troops or kept a garrison in some cities in order to ensure the collection of tribute. In some places, the Gutians may have even appointed the NC from amongst the locals to collect tribute and govern on their behalf.
Right, like a fiefdom.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of that little segment.
Yeah, and so the Gutians, just so you know too, there's a lot of like conspiracy about the Gutians, like who are they not, did their language, was it Indo-European, was it Semitic, was it something else, was it anyways, there's a belief that by one person, I'm not claiming, by the way, so people understand, I'm not saying this is true or not true, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I haven't looked at the Gutians very much. I'm just saying that there is a belief that and that is also somewhat rejected, or maybe it's all totally rejected, I don't know, but that the Taran Basin, like mummy people, whatever, they're white with red hair, that they relate to the Gutians, or that people from China from the Taran Basin, maybe not related to them, were the Gutians, or something certainly from, which I told you, I can see people from that area coming down, maybe because that goes through the mountain corridor of Iran. So I don't know it to be true or not true. I'm just saying that there's some, because one of the things is, the reason I think people say this is because once again it goes back to the features of face, right? That how they talk about them, because they said they have monkey faces, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the Assyrians, the people 4,000 years ago, said they were monkey-faced, dog personalitied, and snakes or something, and how they attack or something. Anyway.
So it's hard to know exactly what the hell that means, right?
Right. So it's obviously some form of bigotry or whatever.
Yeah,
definitely going on. But so I'm just saying that, and they said they were foreigners. They're not like anyone. That's why some people made these claims. I don't know. I went to go look it up, but I didn't, spend my whole life, trying to research this.
Right.
and I see too that, like I said, that this is the problem: is a lot of sites were found, then later people got good at DNA, but it doesn't mean that they go through all old sites or have the money and financing to go through all old sites everywhere and check all DNA.
Yeah.
So. Or sometimes you don't find usable DNA, or you can't, identify for sure who it is or what it,
Yep,
like
for
to
sure.
figure out what the Gutians are. Although I really wish they could, because I like DNA. I like, languages. That's why I look at pottery. I look up all the ways that you can prove something and still keep it falsifiable.
Right. These are identifiable characteristics of a particular
the
group.
shit that Graham doesn't do. Like, he says this culture. Okay, what kind of boats? Coming from what region? I mean, I guess you're saying they came across from Asia? I mean,
right.
And if you're saying that, are you talking about the ancient North Eurasians? Because I've heard you use other terms.
So what do you actually mean is the question.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, because once again, like I'm trying to say, is that to me, that's how I try to build my thing, is exactly the shit that he's not freely sharing, And like I said, if I say that a certain thing did stuff, and the best evidence is from the Midwest, which is completely, in a sense, landlocked, except you're going to talk about them going across the lakes.
Right.
But in a sense, or relatively landlocked, you'd have to do a lot to get out to the ocean, whatever. But this is the only left genetic evidence, in a real way, of your rDNA, and you're calling this the great America's, seafaring culture that went all over, down to even the Incas and stuff, and taught everyone everything. And the only evidence of it is really,
this one
up in the center north or South America, where all the places are all testing at 500. Yeah, I mean, it just, to me, when I heard R1B, I thought, he's done.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, obviously I'm not an expert in this in any sense, but it sounds like, from what you're describing, that he picked the one DNA strand that could actually debunk the thing that he was saying. Like, he could have picked almost any other.
Well, he should have picked C. C would have been way better.
Right.
Or Q. Q would have been good, but those are both Native American ones. And remember, shocker, why people think maybe he's a racist, or he's peddling racist bullshit, is because it wasn't Native Americans that did it. It was some outsider, non-Native American, that taught them everything they know.
Of course, yeah.
And how can, it's like people being shocked. How can people be shocked by that? Yeah, right. But
it's like the racist version of Ancient Aliens, almost.
Right. But I still would say that, and I agree with them, but it definitely sounds like dog whistles of racism. But let's just assume he's foolish and just doesn't know this.
Sure.
He's still wrong, people. Yeah. He's wrong, because that DNA didn't happen. So the same thing with the Gutians, though. I don't know, because I couldn't find anything. So this would be, to me, it isn't that they didn't come from China. I don't know. I don't think anybody does, until you tell me there's DNA, and then we can look at who this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for all I know, they could have given Germany. I mean, I don't, or from Russia. I mean, I'm not going to assume that we know exactly. To me, we don't know until we get the DNA. Then we'll know.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, but like I said, that it's still that people come up with ideas and say that they're different languages. And I hear people saying they're not. And I was thinking, how do they know which language they actually spoke, or to make negative claims, I mean. So in other words, like when someone says they could be Indo-European and other scholars say they can't, why can't they?
Like, how do you know that?
Right. Yeah. So I'm, by the way, I'm not claiming that people don't know. I'm just saying that I didn't think that. I didn't see anyone explain that, and that would be something that I would have researched if I cared.
Right.
Like, okay, but how do we know what? And if we do know what, shouldn't we be able to tell where it spread or came or when, or it should give us more information.
Yeah.
And also, is there derivatives of that language that say they spoke? Anyway, I'm just saying that it's a similar kind of thing. It's just that people also said they're the Kurds, and I think people said they were not the Kurds. Well, how do they know they're not the Kurds? Once again, if we don't know who they are,
how do we know who they aren't if we don't know who they are?
Strong claims that they're not something,
Yeah, that's right. But it sounds like they're quite certain about something they don't have the evidence to support.
Well, that's what I feel sometimes science does. And once again, because they're not philosophers, they're not. It's not like everything. Just like when they said about those owls, like for 300 or 500 years, these owls were all made and put in graves, and we just think it was because it was made by kids. Well, that it has to be just toys, and has no other significance. And why was it owl? Because people like owls. I mean, it's just
like there's a lot of assumptions going on.
right. Talk about unprovable assumptions, unfalsifiable assumptions. You just made a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And then to say that's the likely, how do you know that? Here's the first thing I thought. Is there owl mythology?
Right.
Why don't you ever think that, people? And then you find out, oh yeah, tons of it. How about that?
Well, doesn't that seem connected then?
You get what I'm saying? That's what I was saying. Sometimes I feel like they don't look at the whole person.
Right.
But yes, he built tools. You found the tools. He also, which I know it's not, I'm not saying archaeologists don't think this also, but I don't feel like they add that to their theories enough. How's that?
Yeah. Fair.
But there's a person, and they make clothes too, right? Yeah. And they make sometimes some form of utensil to hunt with, and some form of utensil to eat with, and some form of, whatever. Anyways, I'm saying is that of religious iconography.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a whole thing, right? That's the one person. All this is true.
Right. Yeah.
And to me, to limit yourself to just the one thing when you're making claims on larger than that, because are you saying it can't be that? Because people used to say they're goddesses. Well, why would they say that? Because there's a belief that the birds were goddesses. Some people believe they're shapeshifters or just a spirit animal or representation in several different mythologies, but do have to do with women because it has to do with moon and the nighttime. Which I talked about before. I already know women and moon just definitely, it looks to me at least, how about this speculation that 35,000 years ago there's something, and then they're holding an antler, and then at 22 or 20 whatever 5, I can't remember now exactly, but there's another figure who's fat and round, and she's holding a horn with 13 or whatever, some kind of amount of notches that relates to like cycles of the year or whatever, or So
right,
and then they also found a 34,000-year-old moon calendar.
Right.
So there's, once again, but when you just see the calendar by itself and you see these other things by themselves, even though they're representing looks like the same thing, guess what? They're by the same people. They're going all these places.
There's more lines of evidence to show that they can be connected in this way.
Right. So but once again, it's still a speculation. But I'm saying that the fact that there's mythology that relates to these figurines, to me, in several different types of things, it's just the fact that they don't think that, like, could it be? I agree. It doesn't have to be goddesses for me. Some people get like fixated. Everything is a goddess, But I would say that a lot of times attributes are all over the place, meaning that there's an animal. This is a lot of the religions. They have all these mythologies of animals and stuff. So even like the king, I think it's after maybe Naram-Sin, I think, is after the Gutians. He conquers them, I think, maybe.
Okay.
If I remember right. Anyways, there's a stele, which is like a stone, carving of him.
Right.
And he's like super big and he's stepping on people. And he's got this helmet that looks almost like Vikings. He's got 2 horns coming out, right?
Okay.
The Vikings actually never had that, but in the Bronze Age, yeah, they did.
Okay.
Even in European Bronze Age, yeah, they did too. So I think it starts, towards the Iron Age. It doesn't happen, and certainly not Vikings or anything like that.
Right.
So, but that what I told you before, that relates to the moon and to the sky in general, like the sun or the stars or whatever. It's all kind of related. You can tell in iconography at least. And the fact that he's wearing that also immediately makes that he's either religious, like shaman or priest or something,
right,
or he's a deity, because deities are also shown wearing horns, especially in Mesopotamia. And they have in fact, they have like a whole crown of like several horns. all bull, even little tiny bull horns on top.
Oh, okay.
Which remember we showed up one of the videos a long time ago. I stopped you and showed you that.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, just like that. The fact that all these different horns all relates to the same theme. They're all sharing the same thing, even though there's different cultures.
Right. So based on that, you can draw a speculation because you have these various reasons to back it up.
Right. And that's also what I wish that Graham would talk a lot more, is say they're speculations.
Mm-hmm.
And then explain, how strong, like I told you before, reason speculation. Here's a bunch of evidence. Okay, this is a reasonable jump. What he talks about is not reasonable. And if you go, like I said, look at the DNA, which we're going to show a little video of the DNA that shows how it left Africa and what it did. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they know shit,
Yeah, that's right.
Science, go science. So,
because
that's the thing I wanted to find out with the Gutians was that kind of evidence, because, like I said, it's not that they can't be a little bit off, but they're pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I guess, though, on a Netflix show, a little bit like hedging doesn't really work, right? Like you got to be certain, you got to sell the thing.
Yeah, but if of course I probably wouldn't be on one, but I told you I almost got on a history show kind of like that,
right?
Because they said, my ideas are pretty wild, but they're also real supported. And I talked about, they said, well, how many times do you differ from archaeologists? I go, yeah, not that often.
Right. Yeah.
No,
I'm using the evidence that is provided, so I don't have that.
So generally, and how do they accept my ideas? I'm like, well, some don't totally agree, but some do agree. Some agree totally,
right?
With me, but say that they don't want to talk about it because not because like Graham's the thing,
not because there's a conspiracy against new ideas. Yeah.
A lot of them, like I said, that one atheist friend of mine is really because they don't want to offend religious people.
Mm-hmm.
And associating with me, who goes out of my way to offend religious people.
Right.
You can see how there's an issue with that.
Yeah.
But I really wish that people would, like I talked about before a long time ago, and is having a standard how you think, no matter what ideas, even if you think that Graham, is correct and Damien, and Cory are wrong, that he's wrong, and all these archaeologists are wrong, that he's wrong. All the historians are wrong, that he's wrong.
Yeah.
Anyways, so, but how do you know who's really telling the truth? To me, you got to have reasoned belief acquisitions, or try to. That's what I was saying before. It's a belief etiquette. That I instead of being skeptical and like just randomly skeptical, which I don't think really probably most people are skeptics are just randomly skeptical.
No,
there's probably a lot more reasoning going on than
they don't describe it that way usually, but yeah.
Right, yeah. So, but my point is, being a rationalist, I only care about the reason. If skepticism happens, it's because of reason. Like I said, I am skeptical that 75 different samples from different times that all look like they're in the right situ for the time of 7,000 are now all found to be, only 4,000. I'm sorry. That makes me look like, what did you just say?
How did that happen? How could we possibly be off by that much?
So this is another thing too. That doesn't mean that I don't say that it's untrue.
Right.
I'm just saying, wow, that's hard for me as a rationalist to grasp how that many things could be that wrong. And then in context, that just that just sounds bizarre and like hard to grasp.
Yeah.
But like I said, I still believe science.
Yep.
But I'm open, like I said, for myself to be wrong and for science to be wrong. So that's why for the Gutians, I wanted to try to figure out where they're from or what they relate to. I don't know.
We didn't have much luck.
No, didn't have much luck. I know a general region they came from, and I'm going to show a little picture in here. I sent it to you too, but show a picture just so people have a grasp where they came from. But I don't know. And I would say, from what I researched, if someone's telling you they know, unless they have a peer-reviewed something, I wouldn't believe them.
Yeah. No.
That would be my going back to like the Graham Hancock thing. You haven't provided the evidence to make your thing supported. When I go look at what you provided that was more falsifiable, it's falsified.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it starts also to sound like you use the word Cro-Magnon. And then you use the word Caucasian thing. Oh, both those are.
Yeah.
There's your what's that white supremacist fucking dog whistle.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, but like I said, and if it was unintentional, here's the thing: you need to fucking change it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you didn't know that it was a racist thing beforehand, you should now, and you need to adjust.
You need to address it, yeah. And if you don't believe me, what I said, go look it up.
Yeah.
And then you can read for yourself that it attaches to creationism, and it attaches to scientific racism. And right there, Wikipedia says this, and it attaches to the belief in the Great Flood. So now you know why you use that term and talk about Great Flood. People are like, "Oh God, no."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do we want to start in on our script here? All right. So it looks like we're starting with Naram-Sin. Manish-Tushu's son and successor, Naram-Sin, from 2254 to 2218 BCE, due to vast military conquests, assumed the imperial title King Naram-Sin, or King of the Four Quarters. Lugal Naram-Sin Sar Kibrat Arbraim, the Four Quarters as a reference to the entire world. He was also, for the first time in Sumerian culture, addressed as the quote-unquote the god of Agade. In opposition to the previous religious belief that kings were only representatives of the people towards the gods. He also faced revolts at the start of his reign, but quickly crushed them. Naram-Sin was also recorded the Akkadian conquest of Ebla, as well as Armanum and its king. The location of Armanum is debated. It is sometimes identified with a Syrian kingdom mentioned in the tablets of Ebla as Armi, whose location is also debated, while historian Adelheid Otto identifies it with the citadel of Bazi at the Tel Banat complex on the Euphrates River between Ebla and Tel Brak.
Others remember, if you remember, like Göbekli Tepe and Tel are the same thing in a sense.
Oh, right. So it's still like
it's just a man created, or human, not man, but human, created mound.
Right.
Often it's cultural layered. Mm-hmm. In other words, like you build one city, it gets destroyed, and then you just build dirt on top of that. Build another city, it gets destroyed. You build another one. All of a sudden, you got this freaking mountain.
Right.
In a sense, with several, that's generally what a Tel or a Tepe refers to.
Okay. Others like Wayne Horowitz identify it with Aleppo. Further, while most scholars place Armanum in Syria, Michael C. Astor believes it to be located north of the Hamrin Mountains in northern Iraq. To better police Syria, he built a royal residence at Tel Brak, at crossroads at the heart of the Kabur River, basin of the Jezira. Naram-Sin campaigned against Magan, which also revolted. Naram-Sin marched against Magan and personally caught Mandanu, its king, where he instated garrisons to protect the main roads. The chief threat seemed to be coming from the northern Zagros Mountains, the Lulubis, and the Gutians. A campaign against the Lullaby led to the carving of the victory stele of Naram-Sin, now in the Louvre. Hittite sources claim Naram-Sin of Akkad even ventured into Anatolia, battling the Hittite and Hurrian kings Pamba of Haiti, Zipani of Kanesh, and 15 others. The economy was highly planned. grain was cleaned and rations of grain and oil were distributed in standardized vessels made by the city's potters. Taxes were paid in produce and labor on public walls, including city walls, temples, irrigation canals, and waterways, producing huge agricultural surpluses. This newfound Akkadian wealth may have been based upon benign climatic conditions, huge agricultural surpluses, and the confiscation of the wealth of other peoples.
Yeah, I like how the confiscation of wealth.
Right, eh? Yeah. Yeah. We're just taking what you have.
Right. Which is the preferred method of wealth accumulation, believe me.
Of course, yeah.
The preferred method.
Yeah.
That's to me why capitalism has to be addressed, because if you don't, in other words, like say if you somehow fixed all kinds of little problems of capitalism, you haven't done the whole greed of profit problem that capitalism has.
Yeah.
It always wants more. It's like in America, they always talk about growth. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing. Just imagine infinite growth.
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong?
You can't have infinite growth in a finite system. You just
and why is that the standard? I mean,
Yeah.
shouldn't it be, people's well-being? I mean, anyways.
Yep. In later Assyrian and Babylonian texts, the name Akkad, together with Sumer, appears as part of the royal title, as in the Sumerian Lugal Ki En Gi Ki Uri, or Akkadian Sar Mat Sumeri U Akkadi, translating to King of Sumer and Akkad. This title was assumed by the king who seized control of Nippur, the intellectual and religious center of southern Mesopotamia. During the Akkadian period, the Akkadian language became the lingua franca of the Middle East and was officially used for administration, although the Sumerian language remained as a spoken and literary language. The spread of Akkadian stretched from Syria to Elam, and even the Elamite language was temporarily written in Mesopotamian form, cuneiform.
And so stop for a second. So this is the problem, and I like languages, but this is the problem if you start to get like when you think languages. Everyone under the Akkadian language goes from basically Israel in a sense all the way down to the Persian Gulf, and all the way up almost to Iran. A lot of different kind of people, even today, right?
All using languages that are under the same.
Forced. This they don't get is it forced onto you, right?
Yeah.
So then you think of them as one thing, and this goes back to like when people think of even proto, European or whatever. It's not that it was just one clan in a sense,
right?
It could have been like I don't know exactly. So I'm just.
It makes me think of like
100 clans or something, and that's why they're all a little bit different. So when they all split off, one becomes Germanic, one becomes Slavs, because it is in a sense, not saying that exactly just that, but in a sense, it was not culturally 100% homogeneous. Is all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So when it splits off in the Nordic, Bronze Age, beliefs that go into the Vikings, that sort of, but those Scandinavian beliefs that relate to Proto-Indo-European, or at least the Acralic is mirroring it in some way. But both sides, I think, were influenced. So that's why there's a mixing. But the Proto-Indo-Europeans or the Indo-Europeans that went up there, their belief still comes from this core thing that may not have ever been totally, or it may have split a lot longer, they may have split, 10,000 or something. And then by, 7,000 it gets here, then by 6,000 it's spreading more. So then by, 3,000, it's obviously different than when it started.
Right.
Even at the 7,000 part to 3,000 is a long damn time.
Yeah.
And many split culturally,
Yeah.
and especially to me, understand that when you don't have a written language, it's easier for you to grasp how it could easily change.
Yeah.
And yet still, in a sense, be the same religious themed source.
Right. The same source material, and yet all these different kind of branches and ideas that came from it with other cultural influences affecting them.
which to me, you should see if ideas came from one place and move around. I mean, that's just
makes perfect sense.
And I think that people don't grasp it. Sometimes, say, religious or cultural ideas, or even like Graham Hancock's trying to say, ideas for building pyramids or something. I think it's the part I think he's totally wrong is no matter which the DNA, even if it's our DNA in Europe, not everyone built the kurgan the same way. And they also built, which I would consider almost like a stone kurgan, dolmens, which are stone foundation houses in a sense, with dirt over them. And then you have kurgans, which are a wooden house with dirt over them. I mean, to me personally, there's a huge connection, even though once they split, they kind of become different. There's a point back in, Siberia or wherever that they kind of start and spread out. But they changed. And so to me, the pyramids idea of coming, doesn't have to, in a sense, there's cultures that did, there were sea who did kurgans. And there's cultures in Japan and North Korea that did dolmens.
Okay.
Even though it spread to them in a sense, it didn't spread like the DNA of the same people that did this. It's not, you understand? It's more like these people influence these people who influence these people and then go to that people and then another people. And then finally, they get their dolmens in Korea or whatever. But you don't see, in a sense, it's not like his theory. White people with red hair
going around just doing it.
Showed them how to do dolmens.
Right. No, it makes much more sense. Like, I mean, even just intuitively, it makes more sense that it's a progression of different cultures influencing different cultures and different people, influencing different people, rather than like one group went around everywhere and just taught everybody.
See why I do it? Just the thought. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Like it just intuitively, even without examining the evidence, it makes no sense to say that one group did it all.
Right, especially when you don't find it to where like I said, especially when you get the falsifiable DNA shit. Yeah. Telling me it's RB. Okay, so then all coasts should have RB on it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Oh, they don't. Oh,
well, how come? Yeah, why not then?
Almost none of them do. It's almost an exclusively landlocked concept. Really?
Right. Huh. Weird.
Tell me some more things then about this seafaring.
Yeah. Well, they were great. They just went on the sea and then landed and then went far inside.
Right?
Yeah.
But like I said, even if supposedly it did this, then to me, it would be to me stronger myths, more particular similarities,
right,
in myth, like in a multiple of areas. No, because even because I've seen him say like Egypt and say South America match. Okay, but you don't get it. I all have to match. One person is telling everybody in other words, like we're speaking English. There's different dialects in a sense of English where it's almost hard to understand. I'm saying England or something, and somewhere else could, the South could be talking in a way that's hard for me to grasp.
Right.
But it's still English.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's like, there wouldn't just be similarities, right? It would be identical almost.
It should be, and then you not two of them. That's my biggest point.
Yeah.
Okay, but saying two when it's supposed to be say 100, and then 100 should look alike.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyways, but
yeah.
Still, to me, the fact that DNA doesn't show up, your whole they went everywhere doesn't make sense. But same thing like they're figuring out this stuff, the Gutians. I want to see the DNA because that's when you start to really grasp what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, because as it is, we don't really know where they came from, where they originated from.
It's somewhere in northeast of the Sumerians.
Right.
Yeah,
which
that
means,
doesn't really.
I mean, the whole Like that's such a big area. Like,
well, and they think it just came from Iran in a sense, that central part of Iran, the central western, I guess, or whatever it is.
right.
Anyways, but that doesn't. Once again, like I said, that line from there goes right into, I agree, to China. They come from Siberia, China, right? The inner mountain corridor or whatever. But that doesn't mean that's where they came from.
Right.
Like I said, I mean, I agree that it's a logical assumption, but it's also could be not, because once again, it doesn't have to be logical; it just has to be what's true.
Yeah, that's right.
and to me, really, the whole point of that show too is a lot of times that he talks about, Graham Hancock talks about how archaeologists don't want to know things. That's just
it's just nonsense, right? Like
they would love to figure out that there's proof of shit. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's right. Like they're out there doing their work, trying to dig things up so that they can stay ignorant. Like that's what they're doing. It's just
and that's also what I want the like I said, for leftists and anarchists over there. I want you to know the past, grasp and understand it, so that you can see how this is, because all this stuff, in a sense, started influencing most of the other, not every, but a large swath of all, in a sense, kings and stuff, then later empires and whatever. It all relates to this. This is, and certainly this is the first. This has to do with the first empires in the world. Yeah, which is not a good thing.
Yeah, that's right. There's a book, The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber and David Wingrove, something like that. There's a lot of people who are really kind of critiquing it right now because of the way that they looked at various things, but their project and our project here, it's an attempt to take our ancient history and analyze it in a way that we can help understand why we are where we are. And,
exactly.
And we're not perfect. They're not perfect. Not everybody's going to be great at this 100% of the time, but we're trying to do an analysis that can help us inform the future and our present. Right. So,
right. Well, I don't you think that most anarchists and socialists, if they watched all our videos from the beginning, would have a wealth of historical, in a sense, knowledge that they don't have now? Yeah,
I think so. And the thing, like a lot of anarchists read David Graeber's, like the book, Dawn of Everything. And I think personally, I like our analysis of things a little bit better. We focus a lot more on like the actual, like, here's the start of empire and here's like why it spread. And, we're really trying to focus on the cause of where we are now rather than like just analyzing different cultures. But I think a lot of anarchists would really do well to watch our stuff.
Totally.
Not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but
I mean, I think because sometimes like, if you watch history, they'll make comments like, "Oh, isn't it great? They finally got a united, monarchy." You're like,
and you go, well, no.
Mean that finally the one oppressor went and oppressed the other oppressor, so now the people are oppressed under, thankfully, only one person.
Yeah. They've got one ruler who will send them off to die in a battle or take their crops from them and store them in his own granary or what have you.
Right. Exactly. I know. That's what I'm saying is I feel like a lot of needed leftist critique is not being thrown into this historical stuff. And it's so obvious. Like I said, sometimes hearing them talk about the wonder of Rome and all this, oh my God, they tortured, killed people, fucking stole things. They're those fucking idiots. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's the glorification of empire, right? Like it's very much like, well, we have to admire the leaders and the rulers of this, and we just have to ignore the peons and the average people who suffered under the yoke of these rulers, right? But
exactly, and just like they'll say, "Oh, this Pharaoh built this pyramid." He didn't fucking build anything.
That's right.
Sat in a feather, breezed, awninged, little thing, probably being carried by people in a little chair,
Yeah, that's right.
and got to watch while he's switching, flies off of himself, doing nothing in the shade.
Yep.
Yeah, while others are working in the hot sun.
Exactly, and we've talked about that before when we talk about like workers going on strike because they weren't getting their daily pay and rations.
Right. And imagine if the Pharaoh said, "Yeah, you just can't do that."
Right. Thanks,
right?
Joe.
Like the president, where we go, oh, great Pharaoh. Of course, sadly, too many historians, probably in archaeology, would say, "Oh yeah, this is what he showed his might." Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
he broke the strike breakers. Yeah, he broke the strikers. But yeah,
like I said, though, it's why it's needed.
Yeah.
I feel because
so.
if everyone is just empire loving and fascist supporting, I guess is totally cool with some of the do, or like they go, oh well, they all tortured and ripped people's skin off, so
yeah, but there's a lesson there, right? There's a lesson about why we shouldn't do that, right? We just can't. Oh no, it's just normal. It's just the way they did it.
Well, and I don't think it's that drastically different from some of the stuff today. And they always say, "Oh, well, no, that's when things are in anarchy." No, that's also when people are kings and shit, and they have ultimate power, like Saudi Arabia, that likes to execute people, or the United States that likes to execute people that without making sure that they're guilty.
Yep. Or even even the state just executing people at all, right? Like,
well, I'm anti the death penalty.
Yeah.
To me,
it seems pretty backwards.
To me, like I told you, violence should be for direct defense and self-defense or other defense.
Yeah.
So to me, my point is, once you get someone in there now trapped, killing them to me is a different issue.
Yeah.
They're already trapped. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you've already removed, in a sense, their ability for threat. I think it sucks what people do, big time. I think you can be angry, hurt, and whatever. There's always going to be emotional, but I just don't think that we should be the one doing that. Just like I don't think we should be torturing them.
Yeah.
Or people that get so happy that everyone's going to be raped when they go to prison. I think the fact that we all worry that someone or talking about people getting raped in prison means we should make it so people don't get raped in prison, not glorifying when people we don't like are supposedly going to get raped in prison.
Exactly.
Everybody gets raped in prison, probably. So it's a sickening thing that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I told you, I'm not 100% with probably every anarchist because I do believe that you have to have security of some kind. But this is to understand. There's always going to be people with mental illness. That's like not going to go. Like even if we got our perfect world, there's always going to be someone born with a mental defect in their area of morality, whether it's a sociopath, psychopath, whatever, or somebody can experience something as a sociopath, experience abuse, and become a sociopath in a sense as a PTSD response, or PTSD, where sometimes it's a similar type of thing where they become aggressive or whatever, or hostile. That's not changing.
Yeah.
The fact that people get in romantic relationships, fall in love, and then they get hurt, don't want to kill that person, that's never not gonna be there to me. There's certain things that are like innate to humans, and we shouldn't be denying them. What we should do is how do we the most, in a sense, ethically
mitigate that,
humanitarianly deal with this is the issue.
That's right.
Or at least how I feel. Everything I told you, I'm an axiologist. So to me, everything's value first. I get to anarchism because of value. Because I look at we need the highest value. I'm like, well, then anarchism is the answer.
Right.
Is to me the ethical solution. Same with socialism. I get to socialism not because it's anti-capitalism, although that's a good thing.
Yeah. But because
But it itself has its own good.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So it's not just the absence of bad, Which also, like I said, why I don't get into nihilism, because it's the absence of believing in good or evaluation of good. So It just sees everything in a sense as bad
Hmm.
or as non-good or non-useful or whatever.
Non-moral ideas.
Yeah,
or
like what the fuck?
Yeah.
To me, I can see that leading to all kinds of moral evil.
Right. Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. I often think of like I did a TikTok a while back of trying to kind of explore the idea of what will happen to criminals, quote unquote criminals, under an anarchist society. And I mean, obviously we both think that cause and effect, like if you fix society, then you have fewer criminals. Like you
totally. Well, and also to me, I think we criminalize all behavior, including mental health. I don't think that just because you have mental health means you need to be, addressed as a non-person. We need to be helping people learn to be better. Yeah. And I feel like if we did have some sort of a thing, which I told you, to me, it should be mental health. How do you solve the problem? It's viewing it from that thing. That doesn't mean that we say all crime, like say if you want to steal bubblegum or something, or all should be looked at as somehow a mental problem. Right. I'm saying we should deal with it as a mental health issue, meaning that any type of crime should be dealt with as a care, like when kids, in a sense, do something, wild and crazy, right? You send them to counseling or people do or whatever, right? And they get benefited by it. My point is that you have people that are actively working for them to be empowered, working for them to be efficient. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about when I say that prison should be doing that. Should be trying to make people better and then putting them back in the environment in a sense and helping them even after that. Because it's the same thing like prisons now. They give them 95 cents a day or some,
right?
Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
88 cents a day in Canada, or no, an hour in Canada.
But I'm just saying. So it's freaking ridiculous. It's probably like less than that. I think it's like maybe 20 cents or 5 cents or something. But it's some kind of But my point is, they don't put them out there with the support system that to me is adequate. They don't put them out there with enough money it's adequate. And then they also stigmatize, like in America, I don't speak for Canada, but they may not be able to get some jobs, may not be able to,
same thing.
And you think they're going to do what exactly?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
I feel like, so that's why to me, that has to end. There's no saving that. That is, but to me, it goes back to the punitive things of saying you want to kill people anyways. It's that punitive things.
Yeah.
Although
that's right.
I feel like some anarchists don't grasp that because they're like, well, this one kind of people I'll kill. Like any fascist, let's just say that. Any fascist I'll kill. Or any people that molest a child, I'll kill. Any people that rape, I kill. I'm like, dude, the list of just people you kill over almost everything, is
it starts to add up.
I'm like, and so I don't get if you're an anarchist and you believe in not force, don't you think that my solution is a less force than your solution?
Yeah.
That's what I mean to me.
Like more of a restorative justice thing rather than
exactly, totally. Yeah. And to me, the goal should be a healthy society.
Yeah.
That we all are doing well. And that includes the people that are not doing well, like that commit a crime or do something, even if it's a violent crime. They're not doing well. Yeah. I don't think that means that, we should be stopping caring about their well-being, even if they're trying to.
I guess there are, even among anarchists, there's a huge amount of debate amongst this subject, right? And so I don't want to say that but I've seen the anarchism that I identify with is the abolitionist type of anarchism, where we're more like, we need a restorative system. Like we don't focus on the carceral or the punitive type of justice. Correct. We want to make everybody healthy and whole at the end of the day, as much as we can. I really don't think that killing somebody is. As much as I understand the impulse, I don't want that to be the way that we run our world. I don't want that to be the normal way to fucking function. So.
Right, and so I think that's important. That's the same thing though to look is that the killing people, that has been like what our series shows from the beginning.
Yeah.
So the state's answer, and then to have anarchists, to me, to use the state's answer, we go, yeah, we agree, we kill everyone. I just feel like that this is, to me, missing the point, I think, really.
Yeah, I think so too.
It doesn't mean, though, that I think that, like, say if you're in the thing of trying to stop a child being molested and you accidentally kill that person, that's
Then
fine.
That's defense, right?
That's a different issue, though, because you're in the middle of the thing, in a sense. That's different than after the fact killing them.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, I don't say that we should be trying to do the kill first, but in the midst of stopping the thing, if that happens, that's a different issue to me.
Yeah.
Although I still think that we should be doing a lot more counseling and not any kind of, in a sense, enforcement or whatever. Because I think that is... This is the thing. It's not that the counseling only helps things that are since broken. It helps you sometimes when you're just confused. Helps you sometimes when you just don't know. Just like, in a sense, we try to tell children, hey, you do this or don't do that. You try to reason with them. That's, in a sense, counseling them. You're not just saying do it and don't even ask questions.
Right.
Or do it without understanding, like the Bible would say, do it without understanding. Yeah. No.
God works in mysterious ways, right?
Right. All right, so let's read some more.
All right. Akkadian texts later found their way up to far off places from Egypt in the Amarna period and Anatolia to Persia or Behistan. Naram-Sin also transcribed Naram-Sin or Naram-Suen, Akkadian meaning beloved of the moon god Sin, the being a silent honorific for divine, was a ruler of the Akkadian Empire who reigned 2254 to 2218 BCE and was the third successor and grandson of the king Sargon of Akkad. Under Naram-Sin, the empire reached its maximum strength. He was the first Mesopotamian king known to have claimed divinity for himself, taking the title God of Akkad, and the first to claim the title of King of the Four Quarters, King of the Universe. That's quite the claim. Naram-Sin was born
because Trump is new.
Yeah, that's right. Eh?
No, there's always been people that like to grandiose themselves. Hey, you know what though? Being a sociopath myself, grandiose is appealing.
Yeah. It's good to feel good about yourself.
Well, but what I'm trying to say is that I do attach that to my mental illness, my grandiose behavior. Like you were saying, like, say some people get worried about stuff. I have a lot less of that, but it's a lot of it also, whether it's legitimate or illegitimate. And I'm sure some is unlegitimate. I'm grandiose as hell. But my point is that it is the inclination of that is some of it is just mental illness. I feel that it's just
fair.
I don't even have to try to do it. It's very natural to me. Like I said, empathy is more of a task than being arrogant.
Right.
Arrogance seems like drinking water or breathing air. It's very easy. But well, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, fair. No, that's
like I told you before, I like to tell it too, not because I'm bragging about this or whatever, is to get people to understand more. So when they talk about people being sociopath, they understand it with more reality based instead of this fantasy or whatever. Because everybody acts like sociopath and psychopath is exactly the same thing. That's not true.
Right.
Psychopath is a mental disorder and sociopath is some that genetic, but 50% or 40-something% of the people are experienced or did experience extreme child abuse.
Right.
So there's a correlation. When you really, really hurt your kids, shocker, they don't come out well.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyways, so that's why to me the state in general, or just any type of governance, because I'm not against governance, I'm really against governments. People that feel like they can just make rules and set down stuff. I feel like the rules should be what is ethical, what is beneficial, what is for flourishing,
and I find like if I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I find that if you have just a group of people that are like all relatively, they all view each other as equals, then they tend to come up with, rules that are applied equally to each other.
Right.
We have a lot. I'm not saying we could turn on anarchy tomorrow and it would work, right? We have a lot of work. We have a lot of stuff to fix before people view each other.
But I would say that one of the reasons is not that anarchy is not somehow against our nature.
Right. Right.
That what the problem is like I said about the sociopaths being abused. You have been abused. I have been abused by society.
Right.
We capitalist society, and also this hierarchy society that puts the only good order is hierarchy.
Yeah. That's right.
And anything other than that is somehow to be viewed as less than, inferior, or outright, harmful.
Yeah.
Like they try to say about the lack of hierarchy, like anarchism.
And I mean, in my day-to-day life, I'm currently dealing with a hierarchical situation where my partner's ex, he wants me to no longer be a part of my stepdaughter's lives. He's the chief now. He wants to be the big man on campus. And I find myself reverting back into, well, if you want to play dominance games, I can fucking dominate you, right? Like, but that's something I learned through my upbringing. And right. I worked very hard to become a peaceful person who wants to not, view everyone on equal levels and to meet them where they are. I don't want to be the dominant person in our situation. I want to be equals. I want everybody to be on the level. So
to me, it's unhealthy to not want the person in the child's life to have an amicable relationship with them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something wrong about that right there.
It's
what it reminds me of? In the Bible, right? It talks about there's a parable where there's two mothers claiming one baby.
Right.
You know the story?
Yeah. And the king says, chop it in half. Yeah.
Right. And so then the one says, no, let the other one have it. I'd rather the kid be well-being. And the king says, oh, you're the mother.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying to say, that in a sense, a positive inclination to your care of child should be that any relationship they have with anyone in their vicinity is healthy.
Yeah.
And that if the people are that, then you should be for that. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's wrapped up in ego and insecurity and various other issues that people have because of the world that we live in, right?
Well, that's all I was saying too. And some of the issues aren't going to go away in an anarchist society either.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that go too far, even if it's emotional, even if they're, like you said, normally a kind person. So am I. I strive to be that. But you push me enough, and violence is definitely going to be an option.
Right. Yeah. It becomes an option because I've been provoked.
Right, but it's not what I prefer. I mean, especially now, I don't.
Yeah.
I try to avoid that in a sense, but
spend a lot of years trying to work on the toxic parts of my personhood.
Right. So I'm just saying that to me, there's always going to be that need. But but even if you were going to say like that, we needed something like detectives, not regular police, but like detectives. I still say that to me, once again, their goal is to do stuff that the state desires.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of even them of finding out what's a crime,
right,
is to whatever they. And how do we know that this is important too? Is because police, even detectives, right, don't even currently in America, I don't know everywhere, but don't research all these rape cases. They just let them go because it's not important to them.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they'll go do stings of prostitution.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You get my point? How fucking sick and wrong? What the fuck?
Yeah. So backwards, right?
And my thought would be, and you made sure that the prostitutes weren't being harmed, or like, no, we stopped them.
We arrested them.
Society. Like,
what?
What?
You know that you're harming society by doing that.
But so I'm just saying,
So
that even in a
backwards.
sense, detectives, to me, we can't fix the system because this system is already fucked. So
Yeah.
to me, even if that's all I was trying to say is that when people say abolish the police, I'm like, yes, but a caveat that I really want security forces, but I want them to be egalitarian and diverse and all kinds of things. And our goal is not to be counseling trained and stuff. The goal should not be to go enforce law or to do things.
Right.
It should be to make sure that things are not being harmed or whatever.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
anyways, but people, to me, they just can't get past this system. Like I said, just like when you say to people, they say, "Oh, I want to not mask. It's my right." And then they'll say, "But people can't have abortions, and
Right.
people can't have prostitution, and people can't have gambling, or
So you
whatever
want-
whatever the fucking shit people want to do, or can't have.
Yeah.
You get my point. I'm
You
saying
can't use drugs. You can't.
I can't use drugs. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I heard this one guy, there's a problem with fentanyl, right? Which is like opium kind of stuff, but worse
Right.
synthetically, 10
Yeah.
times worse or whatever, or stronger.
Yeah.
He's a problem with fentanyl. So the solution is people should not even smoke marijuana. We should get rid of all drugs.
But
And
that's
I was
clearly,
like,
yeah.
I wanted to go, excuse me. If people are dying for fentanyl, I don't know how you attach illogically all these other things.
Yeah.
What? And especially marijuana, it doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Or if it ever has, it's so low that it's almost negotiable.
Yeah.
It's certainly nothing like fentanyl.
Right.
But once again, when the state's involved, their thing is always this humongous, like, fucking ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yep.
But let's finish reading.
Sure. Yeah. Naram-Sin was born as a son of Manishtushu. He was thus a nephew of King Rimush and grandson of Sargon and Tashlultum. Naram-Sin's aunt was the high priestess Enhedu Anna. To be fully correct, rather than Naram-Sin or Naram-Suin in Old Akkadian, the name in question should rather be reconstructed as Naram-Suyin, more precisely Naram-Tsuyin or Naram-Su-In, so on and so forth. Naram-Sin defeated Maniam of Magan and various northern hill tribes in the Zagros, Taurus, and Amanus mountains, expanding his empire up to the Mediterranean Sea and Armenia. His victory stele depicts his triumph over Satuni, the chief of Lolobi in the Zagros mountains. The king list gives the length of his reign as 56 years, and at least 20 of his year names are known, referring to military actions against various places such as Uruk and Subartu. One unknown year was recorded as the year when Naram-Sin was victorious against Simurum excuse me, in Kira Shenawi. We took prisoner Baba, the governor of Simurum, and Dubol, the NC of Aram. Other year names refer to his construction work on temples in Akkad, Nippur, and Zabala. He also built administrative centers in Nagar and Nineveh. At one point in his reign, much of the empire, led by Ipur Kis from the city of Kish, rose in rebellion and was put down strongly. Submission of Sumerian kings. The submission of some Sumerian rulers to Naram-Sin and in general to the Akkadian Empire is recorded in the seal inscriptions of Sumerian rulers such as Lugal Ush Umagal, Governor Ensi of Lagash, Shirpula, circa 2230 to 2210 BCE. Several inscriptions of Lugal Ushumgal are known, particularly seal impressions, which refer to him as a governor of Lagash, and at the time a vassal or of Naram-Sin, as well as his successor, Shar Kali Shari. One of these seals proclaims, Naram-Sin, the mighty god of Agade, king of the four corners of the world, Lugal Lush Umagal, the scribe and sea of Lagash, is thy servant. From the seal of Lugal Ushumgal as vassal of Naram-Sin. It can be considered that Lugal-Ushumgal, I hope I'm getting that better, was a collaborator of the Akkadian Empire, as was Mesgigal, ruler of Adab. Later, however, Lugal-Ushumgal was succeeded by Puzur-Mama, who was as Akkadian power waned, achieved independence from the Shar Kali Shari, assuming the title of King of Lagash and starting the illustrious Second Dynasty of Lagash. Control of Elam. Elam had been under the domination of Akkad, at least temporarily, since the time of Sargon. The
Elam's in southern Iran.
Okay. The Elamite king, Kita, is probably recorded as having signed a peace treaty with Naram-Sin, stating, "The enemy of Naram-Sin is my enemy, the friend of Naram-Sin is my friend." It has been suggested that the formal treaty allowed Naram-Sin to have peace on his eastern borders so that he could deal with more effectively with the threat from Gutium. Further study of the treaty suggests that Kita provided Elamite troops to Naram-Sin, that he married his daughter to the Akkadian king, and that he agreed to set up statues of Naram-Sin in the sanctuaries of Susa. As a matter of fact, it is well known that Naram-Sin had extreme influence over Susa during his reign, building temples and establishing inscriptions in his name and having the Akkadian language replace Elamite in official documents. During the rule of Naram-Sin, military governors of the country of Elam, with typically Akkadian names, are known, such as Ili Ishmani or Epir-Mupi. This suggests that these governors of Elam were officials of the Akkadian Empire. The conquest of Armanum and Ebla. The conquest of Armanum and Ebla on the Mediterranean coast by Naram-Sin is mentioned in several of his inscriptions.
I think Ebla is in Syria.
Okay. Quote, "Whereas for all time since the creation of mankind, no king whosoever had destroyed Armanum and Ebla, the god Nergal, by means of his weapons, opened the way for Naram-Sin, the mighty."
Pause for a second. You see how, like, when some people say that religion and even wars or whatever are not connected, well, in that, a lot of times wars like that, the people are claiming the god is involved or is helping them, but they won't say it's a religious war.
Mm-hmm.
But in a sense, it doesn't mean that it's. And then, but see, a lot of times, scholars that want to try to make religion sound better will say, "Oh, well, he just wanted land. He just made an excuse." Well, Hitler made an excuse too of why he was killing people and doing stuff, and made it a religious one. He says that, a Christian, movement or whatever, the Nazis.
Right. Yeah, like lots of people who have other reasons for war also use gods or religion as a justification or a motivator for their troops or their citizens.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, so sometimes when people say, "Oh, all wars are religious related," that's not accurate. But I think also on the other thing, when they say that religion isn't involved, it's land, they're like, well, that's also not totally correct.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like that's also, kind of skimming the facts.
Yeah, it's tough to say religion caused all wars, but it's tough to give it a pass, right?
There you go. That's a good way to say it. Right. Yeah. That somehow religion isn't involved in a lot of wars, or most wars, have a religious element. I mean, even like say that, the conquering supposedly of the United States, right?
Right.
They made, manifest destiny, Well,
right. It was still God given.
A God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you say, oh, there's not religious wars. So almost every war held against native peoples was this concept of manifest destiny, whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a religious war. And they, oh, no. Right. And so when they conquered the people, they totally let them have their own religion, right? Oh, no,
right. They didn't force them to be,
into Indian schools and took away their language and their culture and their religion and
yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. So it wasn't religious, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can't give it a pass when it's like part of the genocide, right?
Right. And someone the other day was real mad because I said I'm an anti-religionist. And they said even against indigenous religions. Yes, all religions, because they're false. And they say false things.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I would never force anyone. I'm an anarchist. I would never force anyone, to not believe stuff.
Right.
You asked my opinion. What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I don't like falsehood. And that's also why I feel like that at first that with Graham Hancock, everyone was kind of like aggressive. And then they're like, oh, well, I would go like one archaeologist. Well, I think his religious ideas are wrong and his other ideas are wrong, but he'd probably be a cool guy to have a beer with. No, I would not go spend time with Graham Hancock, shoot the shit. The guy that I feel like is either totally confused or is fucking lying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either way, to me,
I'd be worried about those racial dog whistles as being like, that doesn't come out of nowhere. He's got attitudes that, kind of help with that.
Well, right. And so that's what I'm saying. When you have that one archaeologist that made a comment about the racism, I don't think he explained like the why, adequately. We're going to do that though. We're going to be more emphatic of the why. This is the dog whistle when we go after it. Because I feel like fascism or racism is absolutely attaching our socialism and our anarchism. So to me, it absolutely has to be addressed for us. Because like I said, anyone who watches our stuff, you're always going to hear some leftist shit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Even if you come here for the atheism, even if you come here for the atheism, you're going to hear
or the atheism or the history or whatever. I'm not devoiding myself from who I am, and that is who I am, and also how I see things, and also why I really appreciate your position, and how I feel like you and me really gel on the stuff. At least it feels like to me. Yeah,
for sure. I don't classify myself as an anti-religionist so much, but I definitely have that kind of sympathy, right? I don't like falsehoods. Right,
cool. Because I say that just to me, in general, almost like exclusively, religion has three, in a sense, things that really I hate. It's pseudo history, pseudoscience, and pseudo morality.
Right. Yeah.
Seriously, these are bad things.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, to me, you get my point. So they go, oh well, it doesn't. Well, the moment you said faith is a good thing, that is an immoral thing. To me, the moment that you said that killing people or torturing people is okay to a God, that's an immoral thing. That's not immoral.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That a God can kill if he wants, or or like even like say an indigenous tribe or something believes you should torture people, cut their hearts out. Like say,
that's not cool. Yeah,
that's not right. You see what I'm saying? I don't give a shit if they're indigenous. That's not right. I told you those totemist people that were, hacking the women in the head with hatchets because they said they had demons.
Right. Yeah. Not cool.
That's not right.
Yeah. You don't get to do that.
So that's what I'm saying. People just don't grasp my position on it. I try to explain it. I mean, I'm pro, land back. I'm pro indigenous rights. Yeah. I feel like that has nothing to do with, do I believe their stories in mythology?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
And I think there's something to be said about recognizing that not all indigenous religious beliefs have that same level of thing going on, right? So you can be like, okay, yeah, worship your totem or worship your ancestor or believe in a mythology that you choose. But as soon as you start cutting out people's hearts, or if you go, if you start believing that somebody's a witch, so you need to punish her, then you have problems.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, because I have a problem with the morality. So the behavior, the behavior violation, let's put it that way to me, behavior violation of morality. So, but like I said, also saying things are true that are not true. Saying that people choose to believe this, okay, that's fine. I mean, like I said, I don't ever attack even Christians or anything. I don't attack them just because they say they're Christian. You start saying that how you feel about how people should have to do what you want or be tortured and all these. Yeah.
And I mean, if you want an analysis, in my opinion, I do think that believing in false things or things that aren't backed up by evidence leads to these other kinds of behaviors.
Right.
But if you can separate them, good on you.
Right. Well, that's what I've told you before, that, I mean, I really care, because I don't believe in an anarchist world we're going to get rid of religion, even though I would be fine if that happened. I don't believe that's going to happen. And I certainly don't think ethically that we should force it to happen.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
but that's why I'm saying it. People don't get when I say I'm anti-religionist what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I say that those three things, especially pseudo-history, pseudoscience, and pseudo-morality, and that most religions have all three of them to some varying degree.
Yeah.
So to me, then that's what I don't like. They're like, you don't like the stories or something. No, it's just not true. It's like Graham Hancock. Do I like his story about this ancient seafaring thing from 12,000 years ago, that had all this advanced knowledge and went and white people, from Caucasian descent and went all over the world with this, RB, thing that doesn't actually show up all over the world like he said,
Yeah.
Yeah, heaven forbid I not like that idea.
Yeah, that's right. That's an idea that even if it was written as a fiction book, I wouldn't like it. So,
but I agree with you. Just logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But also, when you realize, first off, here's another thing too. All pyramids are not by the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
In fact, shitloads of them.
There's lots inland.
Do you know that there's one in Iran that happened before a ziggurat, which is to me is just like a pyramid. Right. Happened before the ones in Mesopotamia.
Mm-hmm.
Became a ziggurat. First they just had the White Temple, then they built it up. But that actually is younger than, I can't remember how much now. Maybe it's 30 or 100 years. But it was, the idea is obviously transferred here. And then these are older, though, than the Egyptian pyramids, who I think also, and there is definitely cross-cultural relation, then becomes something here. But like I told you, even the ones in Egypt, you see them, the first pyramid, the step pyramid, there's a madrasa, which is similar to the white pyramid style, which I think, in Mesopotamia, where it's a similar type of rectangle burial structure. Anyways, one's a temple, though, but they look the same or similar, I think. Then they build on top of them, which both did. One built it into like a step ziggurat, other builds it into a step pyramid. Just saying. So to me, that kind of stuff. But here's the thing. Iran, Iraq, and Egypt, they're not all, by the ocean. Especially Iran.
Yeah.
Especially Iran, where they say where it would have happened, which is more in the north and not in the south, which you would presume if it's a seafaring.
Yep.
So anyway, it's just not logical. That's why to me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get back in here, I guess. Whereas for all time since the creation of mankind, no king whosoever had destroyed Armanum and Ebla, the god Nergal by means of his weapons opened the way for Naram-Sin, the mighty, and gave him Armanum and Ebla. Further, he gave to him the Amanus, the cedar mountain, and the upper sea, by means of the weapons of the god Dagon, who magnifies his kingship. Naram-Sin, the mighty, conquered Armanum and Ebla. Nasariya stele of Naram-Sin. An alabaster stele representing captives being led by Akkadian soldiers is generally attributed to Naram-Sin on stylistic grounds. In particular, it is considered as more sophisticated graphically than the steles of Sargon of Akkad or those of Rimush. 2 fragments are in the National Museum of Iraq, and 1 in the Boston Museum. The stele is quite fragmentary, but attempts at reconstitution have been made. Depending on sources, the fragments were excavated in Wasit, Al-Hay District, Wasit Governorate, or in Nasiriyah, both locations in Iraq.
And like I told you before, a stele is like a stone with art or writing on it, or both.
Right.
Often both. Writing and art.
It is thought that the stele represents the results of the campaigns of Naram-Sin to Cilicia or Anatolia. Sorry. This is suggested by the characteristics of the booty carried by the soldiers in the stele, especially the metal vessel carried by the main soldier, the design of which is unknown in Mesopotamia, but on the contrary, well known in contemporary Anatolia. And then
Anatolia is Turkey, contemporary.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have a picture of the victory stele of Naram-Sin,
Which is where I talked about the horns. You see the horns on his head, looks like a Viking helmet or something.
Yep.
that actually, like I said, relates to religion, not somehow like being crazy or war or something. It's a religious symbolism.
Right.
It means deity, or like, say progeny of deity, or somehow divine.
Right. And since like Naram-Sin has been called like the king of the universe and a god and whatnot.
Right, exactly. And that's how they're showing. I'm just saying that. So even if you thought about it as a Nordic sense, it's found in almost the same thing. It's not seen directly related to war, as people fantasize that that's what it means. Actually, it's religion.
Yep. Makes sense. Okay, Victory Stele. From the main article, Victory Stele of Naram-Sin. Naram-Sin's victory stele depicts him as a god king, symbolized by his horned helmet. Go figure, hey? We were just saying that.
Damien doesn't know what he's talking about at all.
Yeah. Climbing a mountain above his soldiers and his enemies. The defeated Lullaby, led by their king Satuni, although the stele was broken off at the top when it was stolen and carried off by the Elamite forces of Shutruk Nakhunti in the 12th century BCE. It still strikingly reveals the pride, glory, and divinity of Naram-Sin. The stele seems to break from tradition by using successive diagonal tiers to communicate the story to viewers. However, the more traditional horizontal frames are visible on smaller broken pieces. It is 6 feet and 7 inches tall and made from pink limestone. The stele was found at Susa and is now in the Louvre Museum. A similar bas-relief depicting Naram-Sin was found a few miles northeast of Diyarbakir in Pir Hussein. The inscription over the head of the king is in Akkadian and fragmentary, but reads, Naram-Sin the Powerful, Sidur and Sutuni, princes of the Lullaby, gathered together and they made war against me. Akkadian inscription of Naram-Sin. The second inscription to the right over the mountainous cone is in Elamite and was written about 1,000 years later by King Shutruk Nakhunti, who stole the stele and brought it to Elam. The Curse of Akkad. One Mesopotamian myth, a historiographic poem entitled The Curse of Akkad, The Enker Avenged, explains how the empire created the Sargon of Akkad fell and how the empire created by Sargon of Akkad fell and the city of Akkad was destroyed. The myth was written hundreds of years after Naram-Sin's life and is the poet's attempt to explain how the Gutians succeeded in conquering Sumer. After an opening passage describing the glory of Akkad before its destruction, the poem tells of how Naram-Sin angered the chief god Enlil by plundering the Enker, or Enlil's temple in Nippur. In his rage, Enlil summoned the Gutians down from the hills east of the Tigris, bringing the plague, famine, and death throughout Mesopotamia. Food prices became vastly inflated, with the poem stating that one lamb would buy only half a silla, about 425 milliliters, of grain, half a silla of oil, or half a mina, or about 250 grams of wool. Ugh. To prevent this destruction, eight of the gods, Inanna, Enki, Sin, Ninurta, Utu, Ishkur, Nusku, and Nibada, decreed that the city of Akkad should be destroyed in order to spare the rest of Sumer, and cursed it. So we've got a poem. This is exactly what happens, and the story ends with the poet's writing of Akkad's fate, mirroring the words of the god's curse earlier on. Its chariot roads grew nothing but the wailing plant. Moreover, on its canal boat, towpaths, and landings, no human being walks because of the wild goats, vermin, snakes, and mountain scorpions. The plains where grew the heart-soothing plants, grew nothing but the reed of tears. Akkad, instead of its sweet flowing water, there flowed bitter water. Who said, I would dwell in that, found not a good dwelling place. Who said, I would lie down in Akkad, found not a good sleeping place. Gutian incursions. These Gutian raids were indeed devastating, but it is unknown how badly they affected Sumer. Naram-Sin may have passed on his empire to his son Shar-Kali-Shari, more or less intact upon his death in 2219 BCE, or he may have passed on little more than Akkad itself. The Gutians remained there for over 100 years before being replaced by the Third State as the dominant political power. The collapse, the Gutian dynasty of Sumer. The empire of Akkad likely fell in the 22nd century BCE within 180 years of its founding, ushering in a dark age, with no prominent imperial authority until the third dynasty of Ur.
And just think, they call it a dark age because it wasn't no longer, an imperial power. Oh yeah, because that's when things are horrid, right?
Right, yeah. With no ruler over you, that's bad. The region
gotta have that imperial,
yeah. We gotta have that dominator.
It's not good.
Yeah, gotta have that domination. The region's political structure may have reverted to the status quo ante of local governance by city-states. By the end of the Shar-Kali-Shari's reign, the empire had begun to unravel. After several years and 4 kings of chaos, Shu-Turul and Dudu appear to have restored some centralized authority for several decades. However, they were unable to prevent the empire eventually collapsing outright, eventually ceding power to Gutians, based in Adab, who had been conquered by Akkad in the reign of Shar-Kali-Shari. Little is known about the Gutian period or how long it endured. Cuneiform sources suggest that the Gutians' administration showed little concern for maintaining agriculture, written records, or public safety. They reputedly released all farm animals to roam about Mesopotamia freely and soon brought about famine and rocketing grain prices. The Sumerian king Ur-Nammu cleared the Gutians from Mesopotamia during his reign. The Sumerian king list describing the Akkadian Empire after the death of Shar-Kali-Shari states, who was king, who was not king? Ir-Gigi the king, Nanum the king, Imi the king, Ilulu the king. The 4 of them were kings, but reigned only 3 years. Dudu reigned 21 years. Shur-Turul, the son of Dudu, reigned 15 years. Agade was defeated and its kingship carried off to Uruk. In Uruk, Ur-Ningin reigned 7 years. Ur-Giger, son of Ur-Ningin, reigned 6 years. Kuda reigned 6 years. Puzir-Ili reigned 5 years. Ur-Utu reigned 6 years. Uruk was smitten with weapons and its kingship carried off by the Gutian hordes. However, there are no known year names or other archaeological evidence verifying any of these later kings of Akkad or Uruk, apart from the several artifacts referencing King Dudu of Akkad and Shur-Turul. The named kings of Uruk may have been contemporaries of the last kings of Akkad, but in any event could not have been very prominent. In the Gutian hordes, first reigned a nameless king, then Imta reigned 3 years as king, Shulme reigned 6 years, Elulumesh reigned 6 years, Inimbekesh reigned 5 years, Igeshuash reigned 6 years, Iar-Lagab reigned 15 years, Ibate reigned 3 years, someone reigned 3 years, Kurum reigned 1 year, Someone else reigned, then 3 years, then 2 years. These are like, they just have ... So it seems like they just couldn't read it when they're trying to
cipher it.
Yeah. Earam reigned 2 years. Ibrahim reigned 1 year. Hablam reigned 2 years. Puzur-Sin.
Just think of that how short those people are ruling.
Yeah, eh? Yeah, like what's
sounds
happening
real
there?
Stable.
Yeah, that's right.
One thing for sure, sounds real stable.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? And then we get Puzur-Sin, son of Hablam, who reigned for 7 years. And then Aralganda reigned 7 years. And then someone else reigned for 7 years. And then someone reigned for 40 days. With a total of 21 kings over 91 years and 40 days. The period between 2112 and 2004 BCE is known as the Ur-3 period. Documents again began to be written in Sumerian, although Sumerian was becoming a purely literary or liturgical language, such as Latin later would be in medieval Europe. One explanation for the end of the Akkadian Empire is simply that the Akkadian dynasty could not maintain its political supremacy over other independently powerful city-states. Drought, so a 4.2 kilo-year event.
Right. This is one of the just like there's an 8,000 or something event, and then there's a 5,000. There's all these climate events, and if you look at the same time, migratory movements and war and catastrophe often does associate with climate events.
Right. Makes sense.
I was just saying that I don't, think that it's correct to say that the whole thing was gone. But to say that it's in more of a distress, the state was, than easier to be taken over, that makes more sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Same thing with the people from Siberia and stuff shooting into Russia and into Europe and the like, 7,000 years ago, same thing. There was an 8,000 event, and 8,000 to 7,000, they're all moving from there out, to the other areas.
Right.
Because it's climate events making it unlivable to be where they were before.
Right. So they have to move. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that when they show up that everybody just also welcomes them to come live in their land.
Much like today, you still have the anti.
Which is one thing. Well, why I think that really the anarchism is the solution. Is not land. Is not ours. It should be for us, our well-being. Because I think that, especially with climate change, like let's say, everybody should be allowed to move to habitable places of the world. Yeah, and we should all work together and pool resources. I mean, the fact that we don't do that it's just unethical.
Yeah, it's immoral. It's it's messed up. So we got one theory associates regional decline at the end of the Akkadian period and of the first intermediary period following the Old Kingdom in ancient Egypt with rapidly increasing aridity and failing rainfall in the region of the ancient Near East caused by a global centennial scale drought. Centennial scale drought. Harvey Weiss has shown that archaeological and soil stratigraphic data define the origin, growth, and collapse of Subir, the third millennium rain-fed agricultural civilization of northern Mesopotamia on the Habur plains of Syria. At 2200 BCE, a marked increase in aridity and wind circulation subsequent to a volcanic eruption induced a considerable degradation of land use conditions. After 4 centuries of urban life, this abrupt climatic change evidently caused abandonment of Tel Leilan, regional desertion, and the collapse of the Akkadian Empire based in southern Mesopotamia. Synchronous collapse in adjacent regions suggested that the impact of the abrupt climatic change was extensive.
Right, and there's a thing too called the Bronze Age collapse at 3,000 something or whatever. And then the sea peoples come in, which the Bible calls the Philistines, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
But, or one of the sea peoples is probably the Philistines, or at least the Bible seems to imply that, or if I remember right. But anyways, but the Bronze Age collapse. Besides sea peoples, maybe it'll be like the Gutians, what I'm talking about, taking advantage of it. There's also a climate event that causes a lot of disruption, and then all these big empires fall.
Right.
And I think that once again, it's a lot of times climate is associated. It's not that it's only climate. It's
but
climate
definitely
war and migrations and trying to take over land and just like it's going to happen again, people. That once climate change really starts fucking some shit up, and people lose their land because of storms and floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and
they're going to need somewhere to go.
Yeah. And or when the sea rises and there's like no longer, some places like eventually, half of Florida is going to be at least gone.
Right. Yeah.
Under the water. What are you going to do with those millions of people?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They got to live somewhere.
Well, and then how about this to me too? There's a lot of parts of the world where there's really poverty areas, where people are in these floodplains and stuff. And we should be able to move them to some place, that, and even America, Canada, whatever, get them out of where they're at. Yeah. I mean, we should, the fact to me that we, like I said before, that we're so willing to support war, but supporting, whether the poor or, like I said, other people in other countries, especially to me, like countries that, like Africa, that we, stole people from and then colonialized and robbed resources from. And then when they're in need, we're like, yeah, fuck you.
Right, eh? Yeah. So weird. It makes no sense, actually, like to take such a hand. And I mean, there's still so much exploitation going on in so many of these countries.
Oh, too, it ain't over.
Right? So, and then to abandon any responsibility for the people that are suffering, like it's just absurd.
Totally. Just like to me, when see people say you can't do land back. There's a lot of land. Let's just say logically, there's a lot of land that the government owns and people, private ownership is not happening.
Yeah.
Here's a clue: give it back. The government owns it. Good, then give it back.
Yeah, that's right.
There is a simple solution right there. Well, we don't want all the people living on. Good, give them all the land. There's not. It's a lot of land. I've seen a lot of land. It's government land. Give that shit back.
Yeah.
How about that? You start there. Or to me, how about this? Another thing. How about a tax? A native tax or an indigenous tax that everyone in America who lives on native land has to pay a tax. Yeah. And it goes to the benefit of the Native American tribe that lived in that area or whatever.
Yep.
To me, acting like there's nothing we can do is bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying that everything can happen the way that it should happen, but to act like we don't have to do any fucking thing is disgusting.
Yep.
To me, but.
Yep. And a lot of land that, like you say, is owned by the government or what or in Canada, it's the crown.
Yeah. The crown,
yeah. Like it's,
you get what I'm saying? They act like we can't do. Oh, you own tons of land. Oh, no bullshit. Right. State owns fuck tons of land.
Not only does the state not want to give back the land that is considered crown land or owned by the state. Yeah. They want more right to impose capitalistic ventures onto land that is currently inhabited by indigenous peoples or is considered indigenous land right now. So
that's no different. Even in America, they have Indian reservations where they want to tell them how they're supposed to run things, like what they can do or not do on their indigenous sovereign nation land.
Yeah.
Like it's just
it's
just
absurd.
Like, did you hear about some bill that's going to be passed? Or they're trying to say that they should be, in a sense, natives should not get any racial privilege. Yeah, seriously, some Republican person.
What?
Yeah, so that they should be treated like everyone else. In other words, not given anything is what they really want to do. You got to listen to the end goal. The end goal is you're not special. We're not going to treat you special. So I'm guessing they don't even get land status if you the reservations anymore because no one else gets reservations, right? So
Just
yeah,
a total abandonment of any responsibility from the colonized days, or colonizer origins.
isn't that disgusting?
Yeah.
But then again, it's probably the same people that are the, don't teach critical race theory.
Oh, yeah,
'cause
for
heaven
sure.
forbid some poor, gentle white ears has to listen to how white people were horrible.
Yeah, or the same people who are like who think that a gay teacher existing is the same as grooming, right? Like it's all the same people. Like they're just
or even
lunatics.
someone say, you said a gay teacher saying they love a man as grooming or whatever, or loves a female if they're a female, or is trans. I mean, just learning about someone is not the same as grooming.
No, that's right.
But
yeah, it's all messed
They should know religious people are generally groomers. They indoctrinate the living fuck out of their kids.
That's kind of their whole thing, right?
Yeah, it is. Bible school for children. Yeah.
Yeah.
No such thing. You mean indoctrination camp?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I suppose we better get going on this thing. Peter B. Domenical has shown that there was an influence in the North Atlantic oscillation of the stream flow of the Tigris and Euphrates at this time, which led to the collapse of the Akkadian Empire. A more recent analysis of simulations of the CM3 climate model indicates that there was a shift to a more arid climate on a timescale that is consistent with the collapse of the empire. Excavation at Tel Island suggests that this site was abandoned soon after the city's massive walls were constructed, its temple rebuilt, and its grain production reorganized. The debris, dust, and sand that followed show no trace of human activity. Soil samples show fine wind-blown sand, no trace of earthworm activity, reduced rainfall, and indications of a drier and windier climate. Evidence shows that skeleton-thin sheep and cattle died of drought, and up to 28,000 people abandoned the site, presumably seeking wetter areas elsewhere. Tel Brak shrank in size by 75%. Trade collapsed. Nomadic herders such as the Amorites moved herds closer to reliable water suppliers, bringing them into conflict with Akkadian populations. This climate-induced collapse seems to have affected the whole of the Middle East and to have coincided with the collapse of the Egyptian Old Kingdom. This collapse of rain-fed agriculture in the upper country meant the loss to southern Mesopotamia of the agrarian subsidies which had kept the Akkadian Empire solvent. Water levels within the Tigris and Euphrates fell 1.5 meters beneath the level of 2600 BCE, and although they stabilized for a time during the following Ur-3 period, rivalries between pastoralists and farmers increased. Attempts were taken to prevent the former from herding their flocks in agricultural lands, such as the building of a 180-kilometer or 112-mile wall known as the Repeller of the Amorites, between the Tigris and Euphrates under the Ur-3 ruler Shu-Sin. Such attempts led to increased political instability. Meanwhile, severe depression occurred to re-establish demographic equilibrium with the less favorable climatic conditions. Richard Zedler has critiqued the drought theory, observing that the chronology of the Akkadian Empire is very uncertain and that available evidence is not sufficient to show its economic dependence on the northern areas excavated by Weiss and others. He also criticizes Weiss for taking Akkadian writings literally to describe certain catastrophic events.
See, pause there for a second. This also goes with like Graham Hancock, which in general all archaeologists are close to or similar to the idea. Is that myths can have elements of truth sometimes, not always,
right?
Or it could be a truth, but it's a non-important one. Like if I said, it happened in Mesopotamia, well, that may be true, but then everything else I say is a lie.
Right?
You get my point. So that's not Christians try this shit all the time. They're like, well, the Bible mentions different places, and sometimes they're not even correct, but it's like saying that there's skyscrapers in Superman, so Superman has to be real. I mean,
skyscrapers are real, therefore Superman is real.
You get what I'm saying? That or a mega city or something, means Judge Dredd is true.
Right.
Are there mega cities? Well, yes. Was that true? No. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that I'm saying in general, I feel, because I've heard a lot of archaeologists that it's not, because Graham Hancock says they never accept them as true. Well, they're not true. You mean that they don't accept any fact? Well, that's wrong, because they do accept that there are some elements sometimes that have truth, but that doesn't make the whole thing true.
Right.
It's like you have 50 claims. They go, okay, 3 are correct. And you're like, see, they don't believe all of it. No, because only 3 are correct.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so Graham Hancock and people like him, or you were saying, the archaeologists or whoever, anthropologists or whatever that you were saying, taking a myth too seriously or too like fact.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is something that in general also archaeologists don't do. And in fact, if anyone does that, they immediately go,
yeah.
You're like, well, this myth is true. They're like,
yeah, that doesn't work.
No.
Naram-Sin was not actually a god.
Yeah, there you see, right? Cory goes, this is not hard concept, man.
Yeah, that's right. You can't.
But I just want to clarify, especially because he makes so many comments about archaeologists. Mm-hmm. And yes, it is true. Archaeologists will not accept myth is 100% true. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
that's how that works.
But it's also universal that most archaeologists will acknowledge when there are truth or little, non-important truth elements. They will. Right. So, anyways, I don't find archaeologists to be this bigoted thing. And I'm not saying that they can't have bias like everybody, but the ones that certainly, to me, Graham Hancock tries to label on, it's just conspiracy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So according to Joan Oates at Telbrack, the soil, quote unquote, signal associated with the drought lies below the level of Naram-Sin's palace. However, evidence may suggest a tightening of Akkadian control following the Brack event. For example, the construction of the heavily fortified palace itself and the apparent introduction of greater numbers of Akkadian as opposed to local officials. Perhaps a reflection of unrest in the countryside of the type that often follows some catastrophe. Furthermore, Brack remained occupied and functional after the fall of the Akkadians. In 2019, a study by Hokkaido University on fossil corals in Oman provides an evidence that prolonged winter chamal seasons led to salinization of the irrigated fields. Hence, a dramatic decrease in crop production triggered a widespread famine and eventually the collapse of the ancient Akkadian Empire.
Right, so it's solved. Yeah, definitely. Well, right, but it just shows that multiple things going on. This is why, and to me in general, that his thing, like one person taught everybody. This is the same thing that one thing caused the Akkadian fall. No, it wasn't one thing. It was the Gutians, but it wasn't just Gutian. It was the climate change, but it wasn't just a climate change. It was that had to do with the rivers themselves and how they're becoming, more saline or whatever. And that flow affected then off flows trying to irrigate crops. Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So just like I remember when we were talking before, when they had like 4 or 5 different theories of the areas outside of Samaria that may or may not have been affected, and you and me are both like, why isn't it all of them?
Yeah,
small emissaries, little camps, little.
Why are we picking one explanation here?
I'm like, there's a little bit of evidence to support like all of it, and I don't understand how all of it couldn't be true at all. They could have small camps, they could have emissaries, and they could have actual towns they invented. Yeah, I mean, all couldn't be true.
Yeah, absolutely. Gutian rule in Mesopotamia. The Gutian dynasty, also Kuti or Gutians, was a dynasty that came to power in Mesopotamia circa 2199 or 2119 to 2119 BCE, or possibly 2135 to 2055 BCE. After displacing the Akkadian Empire, it ruled roughly 1 century. However, some copies of the Sumerian king list vary between 4 and 25 years. The end of the Gutian dynasty is marked by the ascension of Ur-Nammu, founder of the 3rd dynasty of Ur, which which was from in 2112 BCE or 2055 BCE. The Gutian people were native to Gutium, presumably in central Zagros Mountains.
Of
The
Iran.
The Gutians were described as part of the horde that toppled the kingdom of Akkad or Agade. It was a conglomeration of tribes that descended from the Zagros Mountains, possibly drawn to the plains for its prosperity. The ancient Mesopotamians treated them as subnormal beings who were unwilling to conform to customs and laws of their civilization. Chronicles written around the end of the 3rd millennium BCE, for instance, describe the Gutians as barbarians having the intelligence of dogs and the appearance of monkeys, while speaking a similar language to a confused Babel. There's that bigotry you were talking about.
Yeah. Right, because bigotry is a new thing.
Yeah, right, eh?
But the difference, I think, is, well, one of the differences, color is more of a later thing, per se, than to them culture.
Right.
So it's more, in a sense, all I was going to say is, in a sense, it is. I think there's some racism for sure, but
right.
There's also mainly the main element that's always there, also, which can even be in our thing now, is ethnocentrism. The belief that, in a sense, your ethnicity or your culture is somehow vastly superior or whatever.
Right, right.
Which the 1900s at Britain's, exemplified.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Or whatever the hell.
Yeah, for sure. The Gutians practiced hit and run tactics and would be long gone by the time regular troops could arrive to deal with the situation. The raids crippled the economy of Sumer. Travel became unsafe, as did work in the fields, resulting in famine. The Sumerian king list indicates that King Ur-Utu of Uruk was defeated by the barbarian Guti, perhaps around 2150 BCE. The Guti swept down, defeated the demoralized Akkadian army, took Akkad, and destroyed it around 2083 BCE. However, they did not supplant all of Akkad, as several independent city-states remained alongside them, including Lagash, where a local dynasty still thrived, and left numerous textual and archaeological remains. The first Guti ruler was a nameless king. Ultimately, Akkad was so thoroughly destroyed that its site is still not known. The Guti proved to be poor rulers. Under their crude rule, prosperity declined. They were too unaccustomed to the complexities of civilization to organize matters properly, particularly in connection with the canal network. This was allowed to sink into disrepair, with famine and death resulting. Thus, a short, dark age swept over Mesopotamia. Akkad bore the brunt of this as the center of the empire, so that it was in Akkad that the Guti established their own center in place of the destroyed Akkad. Some of the Sumerian cities in the south took advantage of the distance and purchased a certain amount of self-government by paying tribute to the new rulers. Uruk was thus able to develop a fifth dynasty, even in the city of Akkad itself. A local dynasty was said to have ruled. The best-known Sumerian ruler of the Gutian period was the Ensi of Lagash, Gudea. Under him, 2075 BCE, Lagash had a golden age and seemed to enjoy a high level of independence from the Gutians. After a few kings, the Gutian rulers became more cultured. Guti rule lasted only about a century, around 2050 BCE. They were expelled from Mesopotamia by a coalition of rulers of Uruk and Ur, when Utu Hengal of Uruk defeated Gutian king Tirigan. By the envoys of Utu Hengal, Tirigan and his wife and children in Dabrum were captured. They placed fetters on his hands and put a cloth, or a blindfold, over his eyes. Utu Hengal, before Utu, made him lie at his feet, and on his neck he set his foot. Gutium, the fanged snake of the mountain ranges, he made drink from the cracks in the earth. That's from a victory stele of Utu Hengal. Utu Hengal's victory revived the political and economic life in southern Sumer. The year 11 of King Ur-Nammu also mentions the year Gutium was destroyed. We're on the Widener Chronicle. So 1,500 years later, the Widener Chronicle accounts for the Gutian period as follows. Naram-Sin destroyed the people of Babylon. So twice Marduk summoned the forces of Gutium against him. Marduk gave his kingship to the Gutian force. The Gutians were unhappy people, unaware how to revere the gods, ignorant of the right cultic practices.
Yeah,
Utu Hengel,
ignorant of the right cultic, as if it's
that's
just a thing.
Yeah, they didn't just make it up. Utu Hengel, the fisherman, caught a fish at the edge of the sea for an offering. That fish should not be offered to another god until it had been offered to Marduk. But the Gutians took the boiled fish from his hand before it was offered. So by his august command, Marduk removed the Gutian force from the rule of his land and gave it to Utu Hengel.
Right, so there was, in a sense, a war, not a religious war, of course, but a war that is a religious because supposedly the god wasn't happy how they ate fish. And
Yep, that's right.
Praise him first.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
What a dick, if there was such a god. Could you imagine?
Right, eh?
No,
I gave you this land, so now, I gave you the power to win this war, but now that you didn't worship me right, I'm taking away your power, and I'm going to give the land to the other guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, just think in general how fucking wrong it is that what a god likes is rulers and dictators and despots. That's what gods. And you're like, and why would you not like gods? I don't know. There's a good reason, right? Fucking there.
Why would you ever worship a being that would just take the whim of you didn't worship me right, so now I'm gonna you're gonna die and get
but
captured.
He loves dictators and warlords, and I mean,
yep, that's right.
The state. He's a fucking lover of that shit.
Yep. So we have one paragraph left here. There are scholars who state that the description of the Gutian rule over parts of Mesopotamia was fiction, or that it at least gave undue importance to the Guti horde. This is believed to be perpetuated by the chroniclers of Uruk to turn Utu Hegel's minor victory into an event of universal significance for the purpose of solidifying support for his emergent regime. This view is based on the varying accounts of the surviving manuscripts, with many of them in total disagreement as to the length of the king's reign and even the identities of the Guti kings.
Right, but once again, we should already know, the archaeologists in general feel that a lot of the myths should not be. In other words, you talk about being a skeptic, you should be a skeptic approaching a myth.
Yeah,
that's an archaeological scientific position. You should already start, not like what I say, that you should go start with reason. You already start that you've already done that in a sense. The pattern of myths being accurate is not in a sense. Just like the Graham Hancock thing of the Great Flood. He talks a lot about the Atlantis. I forget it because it's every time I hear it, go, oh my god.
Yeah. The answer is no. Atlantis did not exist.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, let's just say, because he says supposedly it happened. I think it was 9,000 or 12,000 years ago.
Right.
That's already wrong.
Yeah.
And just like you're talking about global flood starting 12,000 years ago. Yeah. No. Because this is one little fallacy part that people don't grasp. If you actually know about the stages of how the Earth went from the 12,000 years until, say, current day, it's major little deluges, not one big one. Okay? Right. So, and also that they can actually test or what they believe, by looking at the land, because you in other words, you can see when there's a tsunami or something. Right. It shows up. I mean, so if the whole Earth got all these tsunamis, they show up. So this. I hate to break the news to you. There is no such thing. Yeah. So they would all be the same or similar time. I mean, but so this is, but anyways, the how the water did rise wasn't drastic enough to, in a sense, catch everyone off guard. So right. it was I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's just say, a couple inches or meters, whatever, a year. I mean, it's right. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit, you could slow walk take a nap, get up, slow walk again, still be fine.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, so what I'm saying is it's the because he's not really showing for 12,000 to I think it's 6,000 is like where the major thing. By 6,000, a lot of it's kind of settled. But like 6,000 years of sea level rise.
Mhm.
Well, fuck.
Right. It's a long time.
Not floods, but 6,000 years. Yeah, that is like majorly an important thing to remember. This is
Yeah.
And yes, there was a few semi-larger, expulsions.
Right.
Yeah,
It wasn't like overnight in any sense.
even like he talks about in the show, his show, the Persian Gulf. Yeah, well, that also didn't like flood in one huge, deluge. It's just anyway. So the whole flood thing, it's just bullcrap. So
Yeah, that's right.
creationists, like the one thing said, creationist, belief in the Bible, basically.
Yep.
Or something similar. So hearing him say that shit is similar. Ridiculous. And that's why it's important to go look at the facts. And also to remember that just like they're saying there, you can't trust all the things. Just like I said, I try to look, where's the Gutians at? I can kind of get an idea, but where they come from,
Right.
or where are they today? Or, if in a sense they're descendants. Who the fuck knows? There's all these people saying things, but there's no evidence. I think it's sad that they don't do archaeology, but Iraq and Iran are also not the greatest places for archaeology.
Right.
I mean, they're great places to go look.
To get stuff, yeah.
But the societies, are not real favorable.
Yeah. Their governments don't like allowing people in.
Exactly. But so I think that when we don't know things, we don't make strong claims. I know it's crazy, but
yeah,
but this was
totally off the wall. Like not.
Yeah. Well, and I told you, even if we build beliefs off of what we believe the evidence is, like mine about the millet and European languages maybe having a connection to China. Well, once you tell me that that's not true anymore, that the millets are all wrong, so the dates are now thousands of years off, it's over. I mean, you don't. That's what goes back to my thing. So there's three things to me about belief etiquette. We should have reasoned belief acquisitions, like I tried to do. I saw the evidence, what I believe was evidence, because now it's changed, of these places in Europe getting it from China. Well, great. Now I just solved it. I figured it out, But then another research coming and saying it's no there. Well, now it's not reason no more.
Right.
I was standing on foundation, and you just took the foundation away. Fucking gone. What do I think? What should I think? How's that?
Yeah.
What should I think when you told me that the evidence I used to build the hypothesis that I had no longer has that evidence? Well, should I hold the same hypothesis?
You can't, right?
I can't. And not if I am an intellectually honest thinker.
Yeah.
I absolutely can't. So you shouldn't even ask me, like, did I change? Of course I changed.
Yeah.
Because I believe in trying to be epistemically certain about things, which means that there's a basis of fucking evidence. So when I don't have evidence for things, like sometimes he thinks that there's no evidence, but he can still make claims. Well, then you should be very doubtful of those claims.
You should really be careful about how certain you express those claims.
Then you shouldn't have a high certainty. You should say, I'm not very certain, because you don't have the evidence to avail that certainty. Yeah. Just like I said, as soon as you take away all the evidence that made my hypothesis sound very reasonable, it no longer sounds very reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, you just took away all the evidence that I needed.
So yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying, that people should trust people. That's why I say why I trust science more, about correctability. That to me, if you don't have correctability in your beliefs, I have a hard time. I say about being skeptical. I have a hard time not being skeptical of anything you say. Yeah. If you're not good at doing correcting of false beliefs, I don't I have a problem trusting you. If you believe no matter what, I have a problem trusting that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not an honest or a good. So like I said, three things I have is you should always try, this is to have reasoned belief acquisitions. But like what happened to me, you should always, the second thing is do good belief maintenance, which means you keep looking, not to prove yourself, just keep looking for the facts, even if it deproves you or disproves you or debunks you, which I did. Nobody came to me and said, Damien, I found this and this and this that proves your theory wrong. Damien kept looking.
Yeah.
What is the evidence? What is the current knowledge? What is it, because you should be reasserting, even to yourself, an honest thinker should be challenging themselves to me as much as they challenge others.
Yep.
And if you're not, and don't hold yourself to, in other words, like if I hold Graham Hancock for the RB1 bullcrap,
right?
I certainly need to hold myself to the same thing of the millet.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That would be an honest thinker. So to me, he's not an honest thinker.
Right.
Fucking telling you right now, to my opinion, that's not an honest thinker. I know how to think. I understand. I see what he's doing. That's not an honest way to think.
Yeah.
Because it's not honest to not have evidence, but act as if you do. That's not
exactly.
honest.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, fuck what you think. That's not honest. And if
it's specifically dishonest, like it's
right, you get what I'm saying. So for me, that's why I said I wouldn't want to go hang out with him. Yeah. He's fucking dishonest as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wouldn't want to hang out with him. Nor would I don't even like people like that.
Yeah. I prefer not to be around people that are like
right.
That.
So, but I'm saying, so the first thing is you should always try to have reasoned belief acquisitions. But some things, just like my thing, it's reason for the knowledge that I have. But knowledge can change. That's why you have to have good belief maintenance. Yeah. Reassessing. What I mean by that is that there's something I already believe, but I go and test, is it still accurate? Because new science comes up, new things comes up. Maybe it gets more accurate. Maybe it becomes proven even more. Maybe it gets disproven. I need to welcome both. Yeah. Because it's the truth. So good belief maintenance. And then after you get that, then the assessment is honest belief relinquishment, like I did. Oh, even though I've had this for, I don't know, 5, 6 years, 4 years now, whatever.
Right.
My theory that I have like 6 or 5 blogs on and talked about a lot. Now I know that it doesn't have the same support. Years doesn't matter. It's gone.
Yeah.
And it should be, because like I said, it shouldn't be about what I believe. It should be about what's fucking accurate, what seems most correct to the facts. And so that to me, that's what we're trying to do here. I'm trying, like with you, we're assessing the beginning of history, the empires, and were these things good? Did they produce good? Is it really great that this shit happened? Listen to the shit. Does it really sound like it was fucking great?
Like, honestly, it does not. Yeah, it does not.
Right. So I'm just saying that to me, that's how we should be doing our beliefs. I don't think it's wrong to have a loose hypothesis, and then go test it. But the fact that once it's tested, that you keep it no matter what and start calling everybody a conspiracy theorist, out to get you and hate you. What the fuck? Yeah. Even if everyone was hating me, right? So taking his position he tries to take, even if every archaeologist was hating me, it is still on the alternative hypothesis person's responsibility, mine, to prove I'm right. It's not their thing to accept me blindly.
Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck? That's not science.
Yeah.
That's religion.
Yeah. It's just you wanting people to believe your version of things so that you can be right.
To me, he should be hella humble. If he thinks he's right and he does not, he should be given the reasons. And if he gives bullshit ass non-reasons or empty shit that can't be verified or shit that he knows can be debunked, he doesn't even express or show his real thoughts. Like that's another thing. Like one of the archaeologists says, I wonder what his real thoughts are. I'd probably be a lot more religious than he says on this show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he is very supernatural thinking. Yeah. So absolutely, he would throw that dumb crap in there because he thinks that. So and I'm not saying you can't have magical beliefs and still understand things that are true. Yeah, but when you start with this thing and then you believe myths to be true, like Plato was right or whatever, It's ridiculous. And like I said, I don't understand how Plato is right to him for the 12,000, but then Plato says it's by Spain or past the where Spain and Africa touch, past that somewhere.
Right.
Why do you say it could be anywhere in the world when that's not what he said? How, you know what I'm saying? The illogicalness. How do you say, even being consistent? This goes back to me, different kinds of truth. So I'm asking for what I think of truth, as well as too complicated for you, probably. Well, most people, not everybody, but to me, the first thing always is pragmatic theory of truth, because you go from not knowing, right, to then, in a sense, assessing things.
Right.
That's how you learn stuff, or you claim to know it, right? Then, in a sense, 'cause even if the scientist says this, they're giving you a thing, then you learn it, and then you come to believe or whatever. I mean, some people, I guess, can believe without learning anything, but you're still there's people love doing that. Religion, but I'm talking about in a good thinker should be basing it in a sense that you don't start with pre-knowledge,
right?
That's why to me, pragmatic theory of truth. What I don't agree with is then using that to do everything. I think it's how you start. Like you have a standard, like I said, that I try to be reasoned. So that means I try to match it to evidence. That's just a standard. But that's a fucking good standard. Not having any standard could mean that you don't do evidence at all, or you don't see it as an important thing. Like Graham seems to not think it's a big important thing to actually have evidence to support what you're fucking saying. Yeah. So
which is increasing. I mean, that's just increasingly common amongst a very
right. So to me, so it's pragmatic theory of truth. This is like you're forming stage and you figure out what things could even fit. Sometimes archaeologists, when they debunk him or different people, they'll do this. They won't go super deep. They kind of say, well, because they'll say, well, he says all pyramids are one culture. We say that people just build big buildings, and the shape that's most easy to build is a pyramid, let's say. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they know that, or that means that's the accurate answer 100%, or even a speculation. They're just saying, here's a thought that your thing is possibly not the only thing. Your thing is the only way people could have pyramids is your way.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they're not, you know what I'm saying? So, but the next thing to me is coherence theory of truth. So one is that everything has a standard in a sense, or should be in a sense, kind of assessed. I mean, you don't know. But you're going to come up with ideas, but they should match some kind of a standard. The next thing to me is the coherence theory of truth. What you talk about cannot be internally contradicting. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In other words, like I said, if you say, well, RB1, 18,000 to 12,000 years ago, whatever, was formed, and then it goes, this is kind of what he says, then goes out and becomes seafaring or whatever. Okay, then all the coasts or areas that are seafaring should have this DNA.
Right.
This is just logic. The fact that it doesn't should be self-contradictory. You just said that something happened, which obviously didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So it's the evidence itself. So, but he's contradicting. So, but it's like if when people say, I'm trying to think of something that it's easier to grasp. If they said that, like him, that everything died in a flood, and yet these people are still alive. Either everyone died or people are still alive.
Right.
You can't say both things. They contradicting each other.
Yeah. Most conspiracy theories or pseudo theories about history have those kind of internal inconsistencies.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you say a certain thing is so, like I said about the DNA, if you say that it's true that these people are seafaring, well, then that would be evident in the DNA. Yeah. It's that simple. And if it's not, you should already be skeptical. What the fuck? There's no evidence for that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, so people make statements, they have to match up in the thing. You can't say that this is a fact of reality and then it doesn't actually show in reality.
Yeah, like you can't say that, like if you're just going to do the very basic of it, you can't say that A plus B equals C, but then say that B plus A doesn't equal C. Right?
Exactly. Well, in logic, they call it A or not A, but
Yeah. Or
in a sense, and no excluded middle and something else to you, but a thing is a thing. And so
the thing is the thing.
Yeah, and they're all, there's like three basic rules of logic in a sense. It's all basically coming in the same thing, like I'm trying to talk about. It's like the coherence theory of truth. That's why I see logic. Yeah. To me, pre-logic is the pragmatic theory of truth, or how I use it, is just for pre-logic. Mm-hmm. And then there's logic, which I consider coherence theory of truth. The things you say, even if I don't know, like you see, you don't have to, because you know it. But if you say that something is seafaring and there's no evidence of that could, even the DNA or culture you're talking about doesn't migrate that way. Well, what are you talking about?
The thing is not the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Caribou, they love, sub-Saharan Africa. You're like, what the fuck?
Right. All right. Well, why don't we? There's no caribou in sub-Saharan Africa.
Right. So. You get what I'm trying to say is that when you say certain things, that they have to match something.
Yeah.
So, but even in itself, like I said, you can't say something's a thing and it's not a thing. So then after that, to me, is in a sense, the correspondence theory of truth. The external world corresponds with what you're saying. And that's even more important than what I said about the DNA and movements and migratory. It's even more important. The other one is more saying, even without the evidence, just the statement doesn't seem to match up. The other one is that how we get to there, or we start it. So you start it and then you assess it internally. Can't have any contradictions. Yeah. In other words, you can't, like him saying king of the universe, and yet it's only one little spot of the earth. Well, then not the king of the universe.
Yeah, obviously not. Yeah.
Fucking contradiction right there.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, but the in most science, they don't realize it, used in a sense the correspondence theory of truth. Mm-hmm. Philosophy mainly uses the coherence theory of truth, about 30%, and then 50 or 60%, I think they use the maybe it's even a little higher, but use the correspondence theory of truth. Mm-hmm. To me, I use actually all three, because it just depends to me what I'm talking about. If I don't really know something, it's pragmatic. Yeah. If I hear your ideas and I assess them in themselves, that's the correspondence theory of truth. And if you're talking about external world things, obviously, especially like Graham Hancock obviously is doing,
right?
You then are assessing them, the correspondent. Does it correspond to what you're saying? Yeah. This is science. Does this, and I know I'm breaking it down, making it seem simple, but you grasp how they're not really all the same. One's like internally what you're talking about. It doesn't need any external. You can just listen to what? Yeah. Probably skeptics are doing this a lot. Wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In a sense, but you're also sometimes you're using pragmatic, just the fact that you don't know. What I'm saying is there's ways of knowing. And when you get this structure of applying it more delicately, mm-hmm. like of how you assess truth, you're getting a higher level, to me, of accuracy, and you're willing to adapt and change the facts. This is something that is just like you say, should be like, of course you should be doing this. And like I said, this is one of the big problems I have with someone like Graham Hancock. Hearing him talk sounds like a freaking con man to me. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, that it really is my opinion.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying I have facts that he's doing this, but because he intentionally hypes up things and talks about them in a way and like massages, to make it sound the best, doesn't accept any outside that could contradict him. And that is not how you do good thinking, or to me, science. And why he is correctly called a pseudoscience and a pseudo-historian and a pseudo-archaeologist. I like how he tries to go, I only do journalism and ask questions. Yeah, I hear a lot of truth-telling, not a lot of question asking.
Yeah, that's right. It's really weird. Like, and that's pretty common actually too, is like a lot of conspiracy theorists will be like, oh, I'm just asking questions, when they're making definitive statements about the way they think the world is. Yeah.
Yeah. Tons of things. Yeah. Like, let's say global warming is not true. Oh, really? You have evidence it's not true?
Well, I'm just asking questions. No, you're not. You said that thing.
I know. It's what I'm saying. I find that to be a con. It's like a con response or whatever.
Yeah.
or like I said, he's certainly mirroring things that's not intellectually honest way to be thinking. And I just explained how I even do truth. I try to boom, 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 and how I do my beliefs. I have a standard to that. Number one is that I have reasoned belief acquisitions, not wild speculations, reasoned belief acquisitions. And I know that even some of those could be inaccurate, like happened with the millet.
Yeah.
That's where you need good belief maintenance.
Yep.
Checking up on that stuff, correcting it. Try that sometime, Graham. Stop believing your bullcrap. And then you need the last one, which he seriously needs, is honest belief relinquishment.
Yeah.
Let the shit go. You should only, But to me, that's what I'm saying. I say about other people too. That's how you should be assessing me. That's how you should assess Cory, the whole world. I mean, this is not like limited. That's why I think it's so important for us to have a show on just how to do this, though. But how it relates. This is how you do good thinking, or have a better accuracy or whatever, or handle on what could be true, untrue, and what people are trustable and not trustable in a sense, what they claim.
Yep. For sure.
So, but anyways, it's been a good show. I appreciate having you and talking about all this stuff.
Yeah, it was a good chat. Like, I always enjoy coming on.
So. Right on. Well, I appreciate you joining, and I do think that you're getting a lot better too at like you said about people being good at debate. I think you're getting better at interacting, with people.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's good.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. I used to do a lot of like that kind of arguing back and forth. Like even in person, I would do that, and then I kind of went away from it. And so then it's like any skill, you lose it, and then it comes back. And if you practice it more, and interacting with a good thinker like yourself and some of our guests, it's really it's good.
It expands you, right? Me too. People know I'm not claiming that, even though I have a large amount of ability, I have learned a fuck ton from a lot of people. Yeah. And like I said to you before, one thing I like about you is you're a safe person. I'm always working on trying to be a safe person, because like I said, because of my mental issues in my past life, it's not always the easiest thing for me, but it is something. It is a goal.
Yeah.
And is important. And so I do like being around you too, because you help me learn to be a lot more like laid back and not so fucking intense.
Right.
Because so I'm just saying, I think that you feeling like maybe that's not a great thing. That is something that I have learned more from you too, is how to act I would say with more elegance.
Well, that's good. Right on.
All right, so go ahead and tell us about your show and what you're doing and stuff.
Sure. Yeah, it's The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist. I have a few interviews in the can, waiting to be processed and edited and all that. It's on YouTube. It's on all podcast apps. Right now I interview people. I'm also working on video essays, and I'm going to try working on like different types of content coming up in the new year, because my schedule does allow me to live stream some. So at least when I'm on days off, but that's coming in the new year, is a little bit more live streaming and like just talking about current events and stuff like that. So and my Twitter is @SkepticalLefty. I'm @SkepticalLeftist at Collectiva on .social on Mastodon. That's kind of my main social media now. I still spend way too much time on fucking Twitter, but it's slowly burning to the ground anyway.
Yeah, Elon's trying to do that and make it more rightist friendly.
Yeah, that's right.
There's certainly.
Yeah, well, he wants a home for Donald Trump to come back from Truth Social, right? So
Yeah, he's trying to make it comfortable for him, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever. Fucking guys is Trump's scumbag. So is Elon Musk. Yeah.
Yep. Rich fucks that don't
Yeah.
give a shit about anybody but themselves. So
Yeah. Fuck them all.
Yep.
Yeah, but like I said, fuck Biden too. Goddamn fucking strike breaking fucking dickhead.
Yeah.
But
Trash.
what the fuck? Yeah.
All right.
Still fucking really bothers the shit out of me.
I don't blame you.
Anyways, everybody, take care.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.